Chapter 2386. Hyakuya Yuichiro was extremely angry. It wasn't that he was jealous of Wu Qin. Both of them already didn't like each other. Especially Wu Qin, no matter how he looked at him, he was an eyesore. His stinky face made him feel stifled. Hyakuya Yuichiro's friends, Jun Yuichiro and Zaini Yuichiro, were his hardcore supporters. Naturally, both of them supported Hyakuya Yuichiro without hesitation. I still have something to do. I'll leave first. The war with the vampires will be very dangerous. Dustless smiled and rubbed Zaini Yuichiro's head. He still had to deal with the second ancestor, Saito. He didn't have time to waste with this group of brats. Wait. However, there were always some brats who thought they were infallible, blocking Dustless. Hyakuya Yuichiro warned coldly, "You dared to injure Michael and leave so casually? Do you think it's appropriate?" "You're asking me if it's appropriate? Don't you think this question is too redundant?" Hearing this, Dustless couldn't help but sneer. He snorted and said, "He's a vampire and I'm a human. I'm already merciful for not killing him. You still ask me if it's appropriate? This question is too idiotic. When humans and vampires meet, it's a matter of life and death." Now Hyakuya Yuichiro asked him if it's appropriate. "It's ridiculous. Dustless didn't kill the kid and let him live. It's a great mercy. You should leave something for me too." Without saying anything, Hyakuya Yuichiro took a few pills and swallowed them. Many people saw this scene and were stunned. They were so shocked that they didn't know what to do. "Are you crazy, Yuichiro?" After a while, Jun Yuichiro and Zaini Yuichiro raised their voices and looked nervously at the crazy Hyakuya Yuichiro. Let alone them, even Mia and Zaini Yuichiro were surprised. The pills that Hyakuya Yuichiro took were specially developed. One pill could increase his strength. 2 pills would put his life on the line. TSK, it seems that this guy's hatred for me is deeper than vampires. Really, you only took care of Hyakuya Michael and didn't kill him. It's not like you're targeting yourself. Do you have to be so desperate? Dustless scratched his head. Because of Hyakuya Michael, Hyakuya Yuichiro hated him. His ferocious eyes as if he wanted to kill Dustless. Ao. At the same time, a strange roar came out of Yuichiro Hyakuya's mouth. It was deafening, and there was a substantial shockwave which caught everyone off guard and forced them to retreat. And Zaini Yuichiro, Yuichiro and Zaini Yuichiro, and one were sent to the ground in a sorry state. What the hell is that thing? Is he possessed by a demon? Looking up, everyone exclaimed one after another. They looked absent-mindedly at the scarlet-eyed Yuichiro, and all of them couldn't help but suck in a few mouthfuls of cold air. At this moment, Yuichiro was completely out of the human category. Pure black tree branches grew out from his back. They were extremely strange and messy. They looked like wings, but they didn't look like wings at the same time. He gave people a creepy feeling as if he was a fallen angel from hell. His whole body was emitting an extremely evil aura. Looking at him made people panic as if they were being stared at by a devil. Gulp. Everyone was sobbing as they looked at Yuichiro Hyakuya's strange appearance. Many people's expressions changed drastically as they stared at Yuichiro Hyakuya with extreme caution. They subconsciously stepped back and took the initiative to distance themselves from him. Is this guy still human? Looking at Yuichiro Hyakuya, who was neither a human nor a demon, everyone felt dizzy and lost their minds. The only one who could remain calm was Dustless. That decayed and oppressive deterrence was definitely not something a human could possess. Tiske, I was just bored and now you've brought me a good toy. I really want to thank you, Yuichiro. Dustless's lips curled into a happy smile as he felt Yuichiro's murderous aura that wanted to destroy the world. His eyes widened and his interested look made everyone speechless. Of all the people you're interested in, why are you interested in such a monster? He's not a beauty like me. Sasukioya complained narcissistically. But he looks like this. Sasuke Xiaoye's gaze was focused on Hyakuya Yuichiro. Although this guy's aura was terrifying, she was not afraid because she knew that Wu Qin was here. Even if it was dangerous, it was a plane that could be easily crossed. It was not even a roadblock. What surprised her was what Yuichiro had experienced. This was obviously not an experiment of the Emperor Ghost Army. At least, she definitely didn't know what kind of monster this was. Ow. Another monstrous cry sounded out from his throat and it was deafening. The nearby Emperor Ghost Army's attention was drawn over, and they looked at this monster in shock. It wasn't that they were timid, but the aura of this monster was too terrifying. When those blood-red eyes glanced at them, they felt as if they had fallen into hell. Damn it, why did he come out early? Such a big commotion attracted Ike's Hongrun's attention. Looking at Yuichiro's posture, she frowned and clenched her fists subconsciously. Yuichiro was his trump card. He didn't want to use this trump card to turn defeat into victory so soon, especially when it was used on Dustless. Although his relationship with Dustless wasn't good, they weren't enemies either. Now that Yuichiro went berserk against Dustless, wasn't this the beginning of a falling out? Haha, although I don't know what's going on, isn't this good? Unlike Ike's Hongrin, the Twilight people cheered loudly and couldn't help but clap. P.S. 3,000 flowers plus update, 3,000 gifts plus update, 1,000 comments plus update, 500 automatic subscriptions plus update. Chapter 2387. What a powerful monster. What the hell is that thing? Seeing Hyakuya Yuichiro go berserk, many people felt a chill down their spines. He looked like a demon in human skin. His insides had been taken over by the devil. How could a mere human face the demonized Hyakuya Yuichiro? Seraph of End. An angel that can end everything? What a low-class name. And everything? Even if you overestimate yourself, you should know when to stop. Dustless's words were filled with disdain. He did not take Hyakuya Yuichiro seriously at all. I don't care what it is. As long as it can kill Dustless, I will feel better. After all, this kid is part of Red Lotus's Moon Demon group. It must be related to him. Dark Twilight remained calm and composed. His true relationship with Ike's Red Lotus was one of cooperation. Even so, he was inwardly furious. To think that Ike's Red Lotus would conduct such a terrifying experiment behind his back. Was it Twilight himself? Shaya, you guys back off. I'm the only one in this game. Dustless's expression was calm. He took a few steps forward leisurely while facing the raging wind. Such a powerful monster. Is my teammate? Mia held the ghost curse weapon tightly. Her gaze toward Hyakuya Yuichiro changed. There was fear and disbelief in her eyes. She seemed to be shocked by Hyakuya Yuichiro's strength. There's no need to be envious. Although this guy is powerful, this kind of strength is dangerous and fatal. Moreover, it doesn't belong to him. In the end, he's just borrowing it. In the end, this guy is just a test subject. This is the tragedy of a chess piece. Dustless looked at the dissatisfied girl and explained calmly. He was not afraid of Hyakuya Yuichiro's scarlet eyes. He did not even frown. Test subject? Why haven't I heard of such an experiment? The others did not seem to care about this question. Only Xiaoya, who was a member of the Dark Twilight family, narrowed her eyes. As a member of the Dark Twilight family, she was considered a high-ranking person. She knew about some experiments. However, she had never heard of this experiment. You'll have to ask Ike's Red Lotus about that. She was the one who brought Yuichiro back. Dustless shrugged and said unhurriedly, I remember telling you a long time ago that you shouldn't trust anyone because they won't hesitate to deceive you. Ao. The crazed Yuichiro seemed to understand Dustless's words. He immediately roared angrily, as if he was extremely dissatisfied with Dustless speaking ill of Red Lotus. Swish, swish, swish. In the blink of an eye, Yuichiro moved. He gently stepped out and the ground cracked. It was just a step, but it gave people the illusion that he had crossed hundreds of meters. In the blink of an eye, he arrived in front of Dustless, and the dangerous Tachi fell from the sky. It's over. Many people shook their heads and sighed when they saw this scene. They could not bear to look at Dustless. It was as if they did not want to see the only general of the Ghost Army fall. For everyone, the current Yuichiro was too abnormal. He could be said to be invincible. Dustless was also very strong, but he would definitely be finished in the face of such a monster. He's very strong. Looking up at the blade that was coming for his head, Dustless pursed his lips and smiled. He casually raised a finger. Clang, clang, clang. This small finger was like an indestructible diamond. When the sword came down, there was no reaction at all. It was like two pieces of steel colliding with each other. There was only a slight boom. Then, under the gaze of countless people, Dustless caught the terrifying attack with just one finger. What? This is the Seraph of the End? His strength is too weak. I was looking forward to it. Noticing that there was no reaction from his hand, not even a trace of pain, Dustless said disappointedly, You have such a strong momentum, but the power is so weak. The so-called thunder is loud but the rain is small. Is it referring to people like you? This is a real monster. Seeing this scene, the surrounding Ghost Army soldiers were shocked. They looked at Dustless in horror. Was that finger made of steel? No, logically speaking, even if it was made of steel, it should be broken into two pieces in the face of Yuichiro's ferocious attack, right? However, Dustless stopped the invincible blade with just one finger. It gave people the illusion that he caught a child's fist with his bare hand. It was effortless. Gulp. Haine's Hongrin, who knew the inside story, almost bit her tongue off when she saw Dustless stopping the berserk Yuichiro's attack with just one finger. She was different from the Twilight people. She knew what Yuichiro's current state meant. He could even kill a noble vampire easily. The powerful attack of such a ferocious monster was blocked by a single finger. Was this a dream? Everyone felt like they were dreaming. Berserk Yuichiro also felt a great sense of humiliation. He immediately roared towards the sky, and the baleful aura around him increased to a terrifying level. The strangest thing was that some white crystals flowed out from Yuichiro's body. What is this? Everyone was stunned. They looked at the floating crystals in the sky and couldn't help but grab them out of curiosity. They subconsciously put them into their mouths and tasted a bitter and salty taste. It looks like the king of salt. Dustless was surprised. Looking at Yuichiro, he guessed that this kid was really angry. P.S. 3,000 flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 comments plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 2388. Dustless's expression didn't change in the face of Yuichiro's powerful outburst. He looked up at the vast sky. Because of the raging granular crystals, the blue sky was white as if it was snowing. What's going on? Many people cried out in surprise. They were shocked to find that after their bodies came into contact with these granules, they actually began to turn into salt. Their flesh and blood began to rapidly collapse, turning into sparkling salt. Ayo 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 ayo. Another wave of heart-wrenching cries rang out, deafening. Some of the weaker people were even shaken to the point of bleeding from their eardrums. Originally, I didn't want to be enemies with that guy. But now, it seems that the situation is irreversible. Since he's already gone berserk, then I'll ruthlessly trample on Dustless. Ike's Hanrin was no pushover. Since she had already offended Dustless, she might as well go all out. She did not care about it anyway. Lord Twilight, I've discovered the reaction of Seraph of Termination. At the critical moment, Sangong Kuei suddenly trotted over. Her words struck Ji-mu as if he was struck by lightning. He was charred on the inside and tender on the outside. He was dumbstruck. Terminating Seraph reaction? What kind of joke was this? Could it be that someone was even more advanced in their research than us? You even succeeded? Dusk felt as if his brain had short-circuited. His blazing end angel was about to succeed, but in the end, it was still a distance away. Now that someone had succeeded in advance, how could he remain calm? Damn Red Lotus, it's him, it must be that bastard. That Hayakuya Yuichiro is his subordinate, and he was the one who guided him to join the Moon Ghost clan. Red Lotus will never be able to clear her name. The Dusk Man's face turned green. He felt like he was working with a hungry wolf. Those sharp claws could not only hurt the enemy, but they could also tear him apart. Lord Mu Ren, what should we do? The Three Palace Kuei was Mu Ren's trusted aide. Watch this. The dusky man's face was ugly. His face was almost purple, and it could be seen how bad his mood was. In fact, it was worth mentioning that the people of Toru Twilight didn't know what to do. The raging Yuichiro couldn't fight back at all, so even if he was full of anger, he couldn't vent it. He could only hold it in. His handsome face was red with anger. The Seraph of the End, this was completely beyond his understanding. The Twilight people's plan was still in progress. How could they fight against Dustless and Hayakuya Yuichiro? He simply did not have the capital to do so, so he could only watch helplessly. Creak, creak, the sound of his teeth clenching caused people to shudder. Even their bodies felt cold. When they looked up, they saw that there were traces of blood flowing out from Yuichiro's red eyes. Combined with his twisted and hideous face, it made him look even more sinister and terrifying. The most disgusting thing was that there were traces of saliva drooling. Oh whoa! In the end, with a loud bang, a violent impact swept out. In an instant, it was as if a violent sandstorm had swept up. Wild winds danced and raged in the sky, mixed with a large amount of sand, so much so that everyone had to close their eyes. Ayaya, hurry up and come over. Dustless acted as if nothing had happened. He provoked in a bored manner, I am used to being arrogant. I just want to be beaten up. Hurry up and beat me up. You, Sui Xiaoya and the others were speechless. This guy was really asking for a beating. Oh whoa. Such arrogance seemed to have really angered Yuichiro. He suddenly condensed a white long spear in his hand. Many white particles dripped down, and when they landed on the ground, the stones turned into white pillars of salt. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. Yuichiro took a step forward, passing through layers of space. The cold light contained in the spear pierced straight towards Dustless's head. Poochie. Dustless didn't dodge and his head suddenly exploded. But what was strange was that when a human head exploded, it should spurt out blood, but when Dustless's head was pierced, it spurted out golden light. Is that all? Come on, show me your full strength. Otherwise, when I decide to make my move, you won't have the chance to play anymore. Even though Dustless's head was destroyed and disappeared, his mocking voice still spread out in the boundless void. What's going on? Is he killed? The members of the Emperor Ghost Army were stunned. It was said that vampires were monsters that couldn't be killed, but Dustless seemed to be even more mysterious and unfathomable than those vampires. Is this guy still human? Not to mention the others, even Issei's Hanrei and G. Murin were looking at Dustless in disbelief. Dustless's body was still standing tall and straight like MT Tai. It was as if nothing could shake his tall and straight posture. Everyone couldn't help but respect him. Awo, awo, Hyakuya Yuichiro screamed crazily a few more times. Once again he lunged his spear at Wu Chen's head. Poochie, poochie, poochie. In just a few seconds Wu Chen's body was full of holes. His abdomen was full of holes. But what made people stunned was that even though there were wounds all over his body, Wu Chen still stood there as if nothing had happened. The most shocking thing was that Dustless was still singing a pleasant song. Boom, boom, boom. Hyakuya Yuichiro was also crazily stabbing Dustless's body. There were more and more holes, but he still couldn't shake Dustless. Looks like you're at the end of the road. It's time to end this impromptu party. Dustless's broken body suddenly shone brightly, and his body was like a blazing sun. The holes in his body were repaired in the blink of an eye, and he returned to his original state. P.S. 3,000 flowers plus update, 3,000 gifts plus update, 1,000 comments plus update, 500 automatic subscriptions plus update. Chapter 2389. Monster, Monster, Monster. Seeing that Dustless had recovered in the blink of an eye, everyone started to curse. This was too much. Vampires died after being stabbed by a ghost curse weapon. Yuichiro was stabbed by a blade. Needless to say, even if he didn't die, he would still be injured. However, Dustless was beaten into a beehive. In the end, he was safe and sound. His white face was filled with vitality. This was too much of a blow. Ah! Yuichiro, who had gone berserk, seemed to be frightened. He roared at Dustless angrily, as if venting his unwillingness and hostility. Brat, what are you unhappy about? Dustless's handsome face suddenly became gloomy. He said in a gloomy tone, in the past years, do you know what I have experienced? My strength has reached this level. Do you think I got it empty-handed? Compared to you who borrowed the strength of others, I have spent hundreds of years to reach this level. Do you know what kind of effort I have put in? Clang, clang, clang. While speaking, Dustless unsheathed the Ajuruamaru in his hand. The slender grass-green blade emitted a cold air. The surrounding air instantly became cold. This saber's power, these few years when Dustless controlled it, its power was unleashed to the extreme by him. Repent. Dustless raised the Ajuruamaru expressionlessly and slashed down. Boom, boom, boom. A huge black slash swept out from the tip of the Ajuruamaru. It split the ground in half and went straight for Yuichiro. Yuichiro felt a sense of danger. His scarlet eyes flashed with a trace of human-like fear. Perhaps he felt the power of this attack. He subconsciously took a step back. It seems that even the Seraph of Termination can't stop this guy. G. Murin and Heine's Hanren's expression changed greatly. They had overestimated Dustless's strength. They had treated him as a godlike opponent. But now, it seemed that they had greatly underestimated this opponent. The enemy was beyond godlike. Even the Seraph of Termination couldn't handle it. Poochie. The black slash penetrated Yuichiro's body and tore him apart. Although this kid's strength was average, he was able to escape with the wind under his feet. It was as if he was possessed by a god. At the critical moment, he managed to avoid the attack of the black energy tide. But even so, Yuichiro was still seriously injured. The black branches on his back were all broken. The moment the slash hit him, it turned into thousands of sharp blades that washed over his body. His whole body was riddled with holes and there were horrifying wounds all over. TSK. You're really lucky. Dustless was amazed, looking at Yuichiro's eyes full of ridicule. It turns out that a beast that has lost its consciousness in the face of life and death will also be afraid. Immediately after, Dustless took a step forward. Swish. Swish. This step was not a big deal, but Yuichiro, who felt Dustless's strength, took a few steps back and looked at him cautiously. The Seraph of Termination. Is he afraid of Dustless? Akase Hongren clenched her fists. She didn't know when, but sweat had already soaked her clothes. Today's battle had refreshed her knowledge. The Seraph of Termination was not invincible. She didn't know that humans could be so crazy that they could crush the Seraph of Termination. Even though Yuichiro was still stubbornly resisting, every time Dustless took a step forward, he would take a few steps back. The outcome of this battle was already clear. Do you think you can run? Dustless suddenly turned his hand. Boundless gravitational force and eye power were unleashed to the maximum. 10,000 heavenly attraction. A pitch-black hole appeared on Dustless's right hand, erupting with an irresistible gravitational force. Everything in the world would be forcibly pulled over by him. Hyakuya Yuichiro, who was constantly retreating, suddenly lost control of his body. Like a kite with a broken string, he flew towards Dustless. In the face of gravitational force, no one could resist it, let alone Yuichiro. In front of such a powerful force, he was just a lonely boat in the vast ocean. It was unrealistic for him to resist. Die. Looking at Yuichiro, who was flying towards him, Dustless smirked. He didn't hide his bloodthirsty killing intent anymore. He raised his hand and slashed down mercilessly at the kid. In the past, he let Yuichiro live because he wanted to see the power of the Seraph of Termination, but the result was barely satisfactory. Since that was the case, what value did he have? Hyakuya Yuichiro can go and die. Puchi. A cold light cut through Yuichiro's body. A ghastly wound appeared from his chest to his abdomen. His flesh was torn open and blood flowed out non-stop. One could even see the organs hidden in the wound. Even the bright red heart could be vaguely seen. This slash almost split Yuichiro into two halves. Yuichiro. Seeing Yuichiro in such a terrible state, Jun Tsukasa and Zioinu's eyes almost popped out of their sockets. They glared at Dustless and cursed, "Why did you attack Yuichiro, you bastard? He is also part of the Emperor Ghost Army. He is our comrade. What does it have to do with me?" Wu Qin glanced at the two of them casually and replied in an indifferent tone, "From the moment he waved his sword at me, his fate was already sealed. I'm a narrow-minded person. When someone provokes me, I want to crush his body without hesitation. I don't have the so-called mentality of a powerhouse." Dustless would take revenge. This was the true portrayal of Dustless. "You." Jun Tsukasa was furious. His hands were trembling and he couldn't help but grab the twin blades. P.S. 3,000 flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 comments plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 2390. Don't be rash. Instead, it was the timid Zainu who stopped Jun Yushirfang. She pointed at Hyakuya Yuichiro and said sorrowfully, "Even in that state, Yuichiro wasn't Wu Chen's opponent, let alone you? Bear with it for a while. You still have a sister to take care of. Jun Mochizuki, you don't want her to live alone in this world, right?" Needless to say, Zainu and Yi's persuasion was unexpectedly effective. Moon Monarch Jun glared at Dustless unhappily, then closed his eyes in despair. He was a person who understood when to advance and when to retreat. "Don't worry. When I have nothing to worry about, I will avenge you." Jun Mochizuki swore to himself as he looked at Hyakuya Yuichiro's corpse. He had to admit that compared to Dustless, he was too inexperienced. He was like a child who had not grown up. Dustless did not even need to personally make a move. With a light wave of his hand, there would be countless lackeys who wanted to rely on Dustless to crush him to death. For example, Jun Tianli. Dustless only needed to make a sound and Jun Yushirfang would die without a complete corpse. "You're quite good at enduring." Wu Qin glanced at Moon Gentleman and said faintly, "Young people should be like this. It's best to know when to yield and when to stand tall. As the saying goes, it's easy to break when you're too strong. Especially in front of me, everything is easy to break. So, there's nothing bad about obediently lying on the ground. Look, what's going on with that guy? Why are his fingers moving? Isn't he dead?" At this moment, many of the sharp-eyed King Ghost Army soldiers cried out. They were shocked to find that Hyakuya Yuichiro, whose heart had been destroyed, was moving his fingers again. "I knew it. He can't be killed so easily. Otherwise he wouldn't be able to destroy the world. Seeing this scene, Ike's Hongren smiled gently. Her heavy heart finally felt a little more comforted. Hyakuya Yuichiro was his biggest backer. Now that his backer was dead, he no longer had any capital to continue playing in this world. When that time comes, he would be a loser. He can be resurrected? Even the knowledgeable Sui Xiaoya could not help but widen her eyes. The shock on her face was clearly visible. Surprised? Dustless pursed his lips and smiled gently. His eyes were as calm as an ancient well, like still water. His calm gaze was unusually calm, as if he had already expected this outcome. After all, they are the seraph of the end. They seem to be the playthings of God. If Yuichiro Hyakuya wants to die, those angels won't let him die. Dustless said in an understatement. In the original work, there seemed to be a similar situation. Yuichiro Hyakuya, who was supposed to be dead, suddenly came back to life. The reason was that the angels didn't allow him to die, and then he was awakened by a Jiramaru. Now, it seemed that they had achieved the same result through different means. Then aren't you going to finish him off? This guy coming back from the dead is a huge threat to you, right? 3 Palaces and 3 Leaves suddenly ran over and said with admiration, I am your fan. If you let me do it, I will definitely kill this guy. No way, am I really that charming? Staring at 3 Palaces and 3 Leaves who were almost infatuated with him, Dustless rubbed the girl's head and asked, You heard just now, right? This guy is our companion and also part of the Emperor Ghost Army. If you kill him, aren't you afraid of being punished? What's so great about that? Unexpectedly, 3 Palaces and 3 Leaves just snorted disdainfully. Her eyes were shining as she looked at Dustless as if she had seen delicious food. She licked her thin lips and said with a smile, You are the general of the Emperor Ghost Army. If Lord Dustless says a word, I will be fine. Dustless was speechless when he heard this. Were the girls nowadays so cunning? So she had such a plan. I appreciate your kindness. Unexpectedly, Dustless just waved his hand gently, and his face suddenly became cold. Do you think it is a good thing that the guy is alive? 3-Leaf-chan, you are too narrow-minded. Don't forget, this is a cruel world where humans eat humans. But vampires are the biggest enemy of humans. Remember, humans eat humans too. Humans eat humans too? Hearing Dustless's words, 3 Palaces and 3 Leaves were obviously stunned. She looked at Dustless with empty eyes, not understanding what he meant. Could it be? But soon Xiaoya's beautiful eyes flashed. She subconsciously looked at the Twilight Commander and suddenly understood something. All troops attack. Capture Hyakuya Yuichiro. Kill anyone who blocks the way. The Twilight Commander's cold voice suddenly sounded. Turning around, he came with a large number of Emperor Ghost Army and surrounded Hyakuya Yuichiro. See, I don't need to say anything. The people who will clean up the mess are here. Dustless said leisurely. Of course, he understood the Twilight Commander's plan and purpose. How could such a powerful weapon fall into the hands of others? He must control it. In addition, the Twilight Commander had other ideas. Wouldn't Hyakuya Yuichiro be the best test subject? Thinking of this, the Twilight Commander's heart suddenly became clear as if he had eaten honey. Ah! The world is in front of us. It was as if he could see the invincible stance of sweeping through the world in the future. The people of the Twilight tribe couldn't help but burst out laughing. Soon Xiaoya saw this scene, but her beautiful eyes dimmed. The Sun family was such a cold family. There was only scheming and power. This is getting more and more interesting. You two slowly bite each other. There is still a long time. Don't bite each other to death in a hurry. It won't be nice. Dustless smiled but didn't say anything. Hyakuya Yuichiro was the trump card of Ike's Akatsuki. How could she swallow it when he was snatched away? Obviously not. P.S. 3,000 flowers plus update, 3,000 gifts plus update, 1,000 comments plus update, 500 automatic subscriptions plus update. Chapter 2391. Losing Hyakuya Yuichiro would be a huge loss for Ike's Red Lotus. After all, he was her only trump card. It was too important and had an extraordinary significance. Let's go back. After the matter was settled, Dustless turned around and left leisurely. The Emperor Ghost Army also retreated. Even Moo Moo, his archenemy, was like a rat crossing the street, decisively hiding. This kid had been tricked by Dustless many times and had become much smarter. Right, don't go out casually for the time being. The storm is coming. Staring at the distant horizon, Wu Qin said frankly and confidently. Then, his body gradually faded and his back gradually disappeared from everyone's sight. Understood. Sasuke, Xiaoya, Mia, and Mia glanced at each other and didn't ask anything. They only nodded slightly. Night fell and the sky gradually darkened. A bone-chilling wind swept across the vast land, blowing sand everywhere. It was so strong that people couldn't open their eyes. One could also faintly hear ghostly cries and howls. It was especially oppressive. This city that had been through countless wars had been wiped out by the flames of war. Ever since the destruction of mankind, no one cared about it for a long time. After going through all kinds of hardships, it still managed to hold on until now. However, it was greatly different recently. Ghostly cries and howls could be heard from time to time, as if it had really reached the end of its road. Shio shio shio. The night was dark and the wind was strong. It was the time for murder and arson. A black shadow shuttled through the night. This person's body was emitting a clear cold light. His body was as light as a cicada's wings. He quietly moved forward in the dark without making any movements. Plop. When this black shadow landed, it was like a dragonfly skimming the surface of the water. There was no trace of water on his clothes. He was as elegant as the wind and abnormally vigorous. Yuichiro, I'll definitely avenge you. This black figure had a head of golden hair, and under the hazy moonlight, its beautiful azure eyes were even more dazzling as gemstones. Looking carefully, this person was actually Hyakuya Michael. Hearing that Hyakuya Yuichiro was heavily injured by Dustless and had entered the realm of life and death, Hyakuya Michael was furious. He immediately rushed over without caring about anything. His destination was Dustless's temporary residence. He wanted him to pay back 100-fold. Really, what is the meaning of this? Inside the dimly lit tent, this was where Dustless temporarily rested. Although it was very simple, as the only general of the Emperor Ghost Army, the treatment that Dustless enjoyed was naturally not something that others could enjoy. It was very complete. However, what made him speechless was that just as he was about to fall asleep, two uninvited guests came, Yin Xiaoya and the 3 palaces and 3 leaves. You're not young anymore. Why are you still sleeping with me? Dustless was also speechless. Were these 2 little girls stupid? Didn't they know that men and women shouldn't touch each other? If we don't care, why do you care? A frivolous expression appeared on Chuang Xiaoya's face as she said disapprovingly, could it be that you still think we would molest you? That's right. He's too stingy. No matter what, he's still a general of the Imperial Ghost Army. What's more, I'm your cute fan. Do you want your hardcore fan to sleep on the streets? Be careful or I'll expose you. The 3 palaces and 3 leaves nodded their chins forcefully. Their tone was coquettish and soft, more like they were acting coquettishly. Chuang Xiaoya didn't even wait for Dustless to speak. She directly took off her shoes and even unbuttoned her clothes. We're about to go to war with the vampires. It's not safe outside, but it's very safe here. The Golden Reaper, this nickname is feared by all vampires. It's okay for the 2 of us to freeload for one night. It seems that after the extinction of mankind, human ethics and morality have also collapsed. Girls nowadays don't care about their identity and influence at all. Dustless rolled his eyes. There was only one bed here. Although it was big enough for a few people to sleep, they could only sleep together, so Dustless felt awkward. Quickly find them for me. They definitely haven't gone far. If we can't find those 2 people, we'll be finished. Outside the tent, there were suddenly chaotic shouts. Groups of the Imperial Ghost Army were searching for something. They didn't let go of anyone's tent, except for Dustless's. It was a restricted area. No one dared to set foot in it, so it was unusually peaceful. Could it be? Suddenly narrowing his eyes, Dustless suddenly thought of something. He looked at Chuang Xiaoya with a smile. Little girl, you're not obedient at all. How dare you plot against me? Plot against you? How is that possible? I don't have the guts. Chuang Xiaoya immediately denied it, but her small fists were clenched tightly, and her eyes were flickering. It seemed that she was a little guilty. You're wanted, right? Looking at the 2 of them carefully, Dustless suddenly said, to be able to mobilize so many Imperial Ghost Army, you're obviously not a small character. If I'm not wrong, the person who's wanted is that kid from the Twilight Tribe, right? Chuang Xiaoya didn't say anything, but a dim light flashed in her eyes. Dustless's guess was not far from the truth. Sometimes I really hate the Shi family. After a while, Chuang Xiaoya suddenly spoke. Her beautiful eyes were filled with coldness. When she mentioned the Shi family, her words were full of hatred and disgust. She didn't have the slightest good impression of this family. Those who were useful to them would be treasured, and those who were no longer useful would be abandoned. Indeed. Being born into such a family, outsiders may think that there's limitless glory, but in fact, everyone has their own difficulties. It's just that no one knows or understands. Dustless didn't deny it. He and Shi Tianli were old acquaintances. He knew this guy's character. The so-called children were sometimes more like props. P.S. 3,000 flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 comments plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 2392. However, even though Ji Tianli was cold and heartless, he was still slightly more humane than Ji Mu. At the very least he wouldn't kill Ji Xiaoya. After all, she was his daughter. However, Ji Mu was different. This guy even wanted to kill his father, let alone Ji Xiaoya. Tell me the reason. Pointing at two stools, Dustless gestured for the two to sit down. He said calmly, "You two can rest assured. That brat Ji Mu wouldn't dare to barge in even if he had the courage of a bear or a leopard. He doesn't want to die early." It wasn't that Ji Mu was afraid of Dustless's military rank. Even though he was a general, Ji Mu was used to being lawless. He wasn't afraid of a mere military rank. What made him afraid was Dustless's unfathomable strength. He had also provoked Dustless before. Sadly, he was crushed every time and lost all his face. At first glance, Ji Mu had an unprecedented fear of Dustless, so much so that he didn't dare to act rashly. "I don't know either." Ji Xiaoya shook her head bitterly. "Everyone related to Hayakuya Yuichiro has been arrested. The two of us were lucky to escape. As for the others, I don't know." Other than Ji Xiaoya and San Gong, there was also Jun Yushifang and Zhao Yinu who were wanted. The two of them didn't know their whereabouts. "Is that so?" Dustless nodded thoughtfully. He stared at the two of them for a moment before sighing helplessly. "Xiaoya, I even hugged you when you were young. I also have a few years of friendship with your father, that old monster. Even if I don't give face to the monk, there's no harm in saving you once. As for you," Dustless looked at San Gong and San Yi. His eyes flickered. No one knew what he was thinking. Gulp. However, the three palaces and three leaves were very nervous. They rolled their eyes and hurriedly stood up and said, "I am your loyal fan. You can't be so heartless. Besides, protecting me is insignificant to you. Disappear." "What else can I say when you say that?" Dustless shrugged. "However, if the two of you want to sleep in the same bed as me, I don't mind. I won't lose out anyway." Since the others didn't care, what else could Dustless say? Phew. What is this? It's not worth mentioning. The two women looked at each other and didn't care about this. In this world where order had collapsed, being able to live was already hard to come by. Why would they care about these details? "The two of you should wash up and go to bed." After saying this, Dustless walked out of the tent. There were Emperor Ghost soldiers all around him, and all of them had ferocious expressions as they searched everyone's tents. However, when they saw Dustless, they immediately fled. Before this, the people of Dusk had ordered them to run for their lives if they encountered Dustless. This guy was too dangerous. Seriously, why am I scarier than a vampire? Seeing this scene, Dustless rolled his eyes and didn't stop them. This was a good thing. No one would disturb him and he wouldn't be annoyed. It took a while for the two women to wash up, so Dustless left alone. As for his own tent, there was nothing to worry about. Even if he gave the people of Dusk and his men 10 lives, they wouldn't dare to break in at will. He knew what the consequences were. Whoosh. Under the night sky, the stars twinkled, and looking at the sky, the moonlight was beautiful. The only flaw was that the environment was a bit desolate. Sitting alone in the ruins, Dustless's eyes were hollow. That guy, when is Saitu coming? Dustless bowed his head and sighed. His words were full of impatience. He knew that Saito was a scheming person. It was really difficult to lure him out. And? Suddenly feeling a chill locking on him, Dustless frowned and turned his head to look. Then his observation hockey spread out, and the wind and grass within a few hundred meters were all seen. "Yo, why are you not afraid of death? Are you itching for a fight again?" Wu Qin rubbed his head speechlessly. He raised his eyes and looked into the distance, looking at the creeping black figure. "You brat, are you here to be beaten? No, you're here to die, right?" Even in the dark night, Dustless saw the identity of this person, 100 Knights Michael. "Well, it's best if you are willing to come out and die alone." Being exposed by Dustless, 100 Knights Michael was no longer pretentious and didn't bother to hide. He jumped out directly from the dark ruins, holding his sword tightly in both hands and locking on Dustless. His eagle-like eyes were dotted with a dangerous chill, and the threatening sight made people afraid to look at him. It was extremely dangerous. Your eyes are good. No wonder you dare to retaliate against me. It turns out that your strength is not strong. Dustless nodded slightly. Even if he didn't fight for the time being, he could see from his eyes that the firm and beautiful eyes were more determined than before, without the slightest fear. But with all due respect, I have never been a good talker. You are still here to die. Dustless said straightforwardly, and his contemptuous eyes were full of contempt. It's you who deserves to die. 100 Knights Michael's eyes shot a fierce light, and his feet stepped on the ground forcefully, turning into a streamer moving forward. It was difficult for ordinary human eyes to catch him. Since he dared to provoke Dustless, 100 Knights Michael naturally had enough confidence, or at least a little confidence, otherwise he wouldn't have come to die. Be sure to kill this guy. I can't let him continue to bully Yum. 100 Knights Michael secretly swore in his heart, and the big sword shrouded in cold light slashed towards Dustless's head. Buzz buzz buzz. It was also at this moment that countless ripples appeared in the void as if a door had been opened and countless divine weapons shot out from it. P.S. 3,000 flowers plus update, 3,000 gifts plus update, 1,000 comments plus update, 500 automatic subscriptions plus update. Chapter 2393. The night sky was slightly cold with stars twinkling in the sky. The night breeze blew quietly. It was not that cold, but for some reason the atmosphere was chilling as if something bad was about to happen. What the hell is this? The young man raised his eyes and looked at the sky not far away. He could not help but be stunned. His tone was filled with shock and astonishment. In the sky above Wu Chen's head, rays of light flickered. The whole world had entered into the night. Only this place was different. Groups of rays of light were pulsating, as if thousands of fireflies were shining at the same time. The bright brilliance made people a little dazed. Dustless looked even more sacred and inviolable under the light. This is called the king's treasure. Dustless raised his slender finger and pointed above his head. He sat on a rock lazily and held his chin with his right hand. He explained with a smile, "Are you surprised? A mere human with such extraordinary strength. So you find it hard to accept, right?" Hearing this, Yuichiro Hayakuya was silent. His scarlet eyes were focused on Dustless. Although he did not say anything, his pale face showed how terrible he was. Dustless's ability was really strange and unpredictable. It was even more difficult to understand. Looking around, the sky above Wu Chen's head seemed to have opened up another space. Various kinds of divine weapons emerged one after another, filled with sharp cold light. Every weapon could easily destroy Yuichiro Hayakuya. The most unacceptable thing was that there were more than one or two of these divine weapons. They almost filled the sky. Slowly feel despair. Dustless raised his hand and waved it down. All kinds of weapons in the sky suddenly went berserk and poured down like a storm towards Yuichiro Hayakuya. This damn monster. I don't know where he got his strange moves. I have never heard of them before. The key is that there are too many of them. 100 Knights Michael cursed loudly. With endless anger, he locked onto the various weapons that were shooting over. They were like a swarm of golden locusts. How could he block them? Helplessly, the 100 Knights Michael glared at Dustless ferociously and retreated unwillingly. Clang clang clang. The densely packed weapons all missed, and the ground was instantly pierced into a hornet's nest. Even the sturdy rocks could not withstand the destruction of these sharp weapons, and were dismembered and cracked open. It's not an illusion. 100 Knights Michael, who had retreated to the side, widened his eyes. The large amount of powder that was produced after the rock was crushed blew onto his face. At first, he naively thought that this was an illusion. Still want to run? Dustless shook her head in disdain and waved her hand again. Swish, swish. All kinds of weapons floating above Yuichiro's head once again pierced through the void. Like a torrential downpour, they pounced on Yuichiro with unstoppable momentum. Oh no! Yuichiro Hayakuya's pupils suddenly constricted as he sensed an unprecedented sense of danger. Without any hesitation, he immediately retreated. Yuichiro Hayakuya's limbs and bones were instantly pierced by all kinds of sharp weapons, leaving behind horrifying bloody holes the size of bowls. Blood instantly gushed out. Kacha! Following an ear-piercing sound, Yuichiro's face instantly turned ferocious, and the pain caused his entire face to twitch non-stop. Imagine how horrifying it would be to be pierced by hundreds of weapons and have one's body riddled with holes like a beehive. At this moment, the damaged skin began to heal slowly. Although these weapons were powerful, they were not cursed weapons, so they could not kill Yuichiro Hayakuya. But in fact, having an immortal body and eternal youth wasn't a good thing sometimes, such as this special situation. As the weapons were pierced into his body and he couldn't pull them out, his limbs were nailed and couldn't move at all. Although his wounds had healed, they were still difficult to heal completely. The various weapons occupied his wounds and tortured him to the point that his handsome face looked as though he was possessed by a devil. "Oh, I'm really sorry for not holding back," Dustless said with an apologetic tone, but his face was filled with a mocking smile. "But your twisted face is really pleasing to the eye. Kill me if you dare," Yuichiro Hayakuya yelled angrily. His deafening roar was like an enraged tiger that was overflowing with anger. "Brat!" Dustless suddenly flashed and instantly appeared beside Yuichiro Hayakuya. Yuichiro Hayakuya didn't even have time to react as he swung his sword and thrust it forward. A cold light flashed by and severed Yuichiro Hayakuya's neck. A fountain of blood instantly spurted out from his severed neck. But even so, Yuichiro Hayakuya was still alive due to the vampire's strong physique. P.S. 3,000 fresh flowers plus updates, 3,000 gifts plus updates, 1,000 comments plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 2394. Sometimes living meant more pain. Drip, 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 scarlet blood kept dripping, dyeing the ground into blood-colored plum blossoms. Yuichiro Hayakuya's body was stabbed with all kinds of sharp weapons. In a short period of time, all the blood in his body was drained. His huge body was left with a shriveled body. It was extremely terrifying. Awoo awoo. Even so, Yuichiro Hayakuya's madness didn't diminish. He gritted his teeth and let out a strange sound. It was as though he would only be satisfied after tearing Dustless into pieces. "Are you still not satisfied?" Dustless lowered his head to examine the ferocious youth. His bored expression relaxed slightly as the corners of his mouth curled up slightly, revealing a smirk that was filled with interest. "I like to treat those arrogant people, such as people like you who are unafraid of death." Dustless's mouth, which was redder than a woman's, opened slightly and said, "Do you know? There's no pleasure in using force to trample on a person's heart. However, shattering their inner perseverance is the greatest pleasure." Towards the end, Dustless's pale lips once again hung a smile. It was a flirtatious smile that left one in a daze. However, when it landed in Yuichiro Hayakuya's eyes, his heart immediately turned heavy. "Brat, look into my eyes." Dustless's ethereal voice invaded the earpiece once again. Upon hearing this, Yuichiro Hayakuya immediately cast his gaze over. His gorgeous gem-like eyes reflected a pair of extremely ominous eyes. The demonic eyes emitted a dark red color, filled with all kinds of ominous negative emotions. Dustless only looked at Yuichiro Hayakuya quietly, but for some reason he felt a sense of panic. It was even worse than killing him. Buzz, buzz, buzz. In his eye sockets, ripples splashed out like water ripples. They were untraceable and extremely weak, to the point of being negligible. However, it was also this fleeting glance that caused Yuichiro Hayakuya's deep eyes to turn empty. They lost their previous brightness and turned gray. It was as though his consciousness had been devoured by some monster, leaving him in a daze. "Tsukuyami." These two cryptic words shattered Yuichiro Hayakuya's consciousness. With a plop sound, he fell to the ground, and then his thoughts were pulled into another world of dead silence. "Where is this?" Yuichiro's face suddenly shrank. After seeing this strange world, his expression suddenly changed. There was an intense uneasiness, and he felt an unprecedented fear. This desolate world was deathly silent, making people feel oppressed. Looking around, within a radius of 1,000 meters, it was a land of death. There were no signs of life. What surprised Yuichiro the most was that he was currently tied to the cross, and all the serious injuries on his body had disappeared. He was safe and sound. How could he not be surprised that he had recovered after being stabbed with over 100 weapons? Could this be the underworld? Yuichiro Hayakuya muttered to himself. He felt a chill down his spine, especially when he saw the scarlet cross on his back. It seemed to have devoured many lives, which made him feel deeply uneasy and irritated. No matter what kind of creature it was, they would always be fearful of the unknown. "Tisk tisk, thank me." Dustless's ghostly voice suddenly sounded with a teasing tone. Of course, healing you is only to make it easier for me to torture you. It won't be fun if you die midway. After all, you are a tool for me to amuse myself. As soon as he said that, the faint smile on Dustless's lips turned even more terrifying. It made one shudder. What are you trying to do? Staring at the strange Dustless, Michael's firm heart was in chaos. Although it wasn't to the extent of collapsing, it was already wavering. In such a strange world, Dustless walked through the air step by step. He was like a high and mighty god. His indifferent and dominating eyes made people's willpower slowly disintegrate. It's very simple. Dustless took a step forward hundreds of meters and instantly appeared in front of Michael. He held a sharp dagger in his hand and stabbed it into Michael's abdomen. His body, which was in perfect condition, was immediately torn apart. With a kacha sound, even his bones were crushed. The horrifying bloody hole made one's scalp tingle. You bastard, kill me if you have the guts. This stab seemed to have really hurt Michael. He roared madly at Dustless like an exposed lion with his golden hair fluttering wildly. Ah, how scary. Dustless smiled faintly. Immediately after, he lifted the dagger and stabbed again. Another bloody hole appeared in Michael's abdomen. He was in so much pain that he almost crushed his teeth. His ferocious gaze locked onto Dustless as though it was the only way to reduce the pain. Don't be anxious. Take your time. The instant Dustless's calm voice sounded, Michael's body recovered once again. It was as though everything that happened just now was just an illusion. P.S. 3,000 fresh flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 comments plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 2395. Dustless's elegant and handsome face was filled with indifference, and his eyes were tranquil and serene. Upon hearing Michael's horrifying screams, he didn't feel the slightest bit of discomfort. Instead, he was very relaxed. Those who didn't know would think that his humanity had been obliterated. Even vampires would have a drastic change in expression upon hearing his painful screams. Killing you would be letting you off too easily. Although it's best that I kill you, the feeling of making you regret living in this world has only just begun. You need to slowly experience it. I will try my best to be gentle and not let you die too early. Dustless blurted out such horrifying words in a casual manner, making one feel uncomfortable all over. Slowly experience it. I'm about to begin. Dustless said indifferently, and immediately after he exited the Tsukuyami world. The moment he retreated, countless figures with swords appeared and began to carry out all sorts of cruel punishments on 100 Knights Mygar. His body was continuously pierced, and there were terrifying knife wounds everywhere. 100 Knights Michael's miserable cries did not stop, and this scene would continue for 24 hours. Life is really as lonely as snow. In the outside world, Dustless looked up at the bright night sky and couldn't help but shake his head gently. He finally understood the meaning of being too high and lonely. Sometimes, being too invincible was also a kind of loneliness, and sweeping the world was also a kind of helplessness. At the same time, Michael also regained consciousness. His face was as pale as a sheet of paper. He looked up at Dustless a few times, and then a mouthful of scarlet blood burst out of his mouth as though his soul had been sucked out. His complexion became even more dispirited, and he was so weak that he looked like a bag of bones. TSK. You're already in this state, yet you're still alive. Kid, your perseverance isn't bad. You can take a beating. After taking a few more glances at Michael, Dustless revealed a smile on his face. The golden-haired youth didn't say anything. His cold eyes were embellished with a cold light, and his oily green eyes made people shudder. Upon closer inspection, his entire body was riddled with holes. There were bloody holes everywhere, and his skin and flesh were lacerated. Although he had just been repaired, that was only in the Tsukuyami world. It was ultimately a dream. Even after 24 hours, the injuries in the real world still couldn't be repaired. I'm really curious. What kind of trend has made you persist until now? Dustless looked at Hyakuya Michael with interest, then he smiled and said, Is it because of that kid? I mean, Hyakuya Yuichiro, if I kill him, you won't be willing to die after all, you still have to take revenge. You dare to have ideas about Jewel, I will definitely tear you into pieces. These few words touched 100 Knights Michael's bottom line, and he immediately roared with a sinister expression. Idiot. The corner of Dustless's mouth raised slightly and a smile bloomed. His words were full of contempt and disdain. You are just a lab rat, Yet you still want to open your mouth and ask for happiness. Don't you think your hope is too slim? A person's life is like a flash in the pan, only a few decades. Although you are a vampire and your life is relatively longer. But who asked you to be unlucky and meet me in the end? TSK. You are really unlucky. However, I am a kind person. In order to let you know the meaning of your death, I might as well tell you the meaning of your and Hyakuya Yuichiro's life. As if he was really interested, Dustless showed a rare serious face, and it was quite serious. What do you mean? Tell me clearly. Hyakuya Yuichiro's eyes were sunken, and all the blood in his body flowed out. His body was shriveled. Vampires were a rather special race. In the case of extreme blood loss, although they wouldn't die, they would degenerate into ghosts. You don't even know this? I thought you would have improved a little after following Freed for a few years, but the result is disappointing. Dustless lowered his gaze slightly, and Hyakuya Yuichiro entered his sight. He was in a very bad state and his spirit was extremely weak. You and Hyakuya Yuichiro are both experimental subjects for the End's Blazing Angel. The only difference is that Hyakuya Yuichiro is very successful, but you seem to be a failure. Dustless said casually, the reason why I kept you alive is because I wanted to see how powerful the End's Blazing Angel is. Speaking until here, Dustless couldn't help but shake his head. Unfortunately, I had a strong interest in that thing at the beginning, but after witnessing Hyakuya Yuichiro's strength after going berserk, to be honest, I have completely lost interest in you. You bastard. Hearing this, Hyakuya Michael glared at Dustless, and his eyes were spitting fire. You wanted to melt Dustless. Still staring at me? If you want to die so much, then I will fulfill your wish. Dustless's pupils suddenly blinked, and the seemingly casual energy ripples splashed gently, but Hyakuya Michael was instantly in big trouble. Kamui. The void around Mikao was distorted, and many holes appeared. These were all distorted by the Sharingan. In the blink of an eye, Mikao's body was devoured, and his body was torn beyond recognition. A good person was torn apart like a piece of cloth. What an eyesore. Dustless looked down at the big pool of blood, and then his eyes blinked again. Amaterasu. A pitch-black fire descended without any warning, swallowing Hyakuya Michael's body fragments like a whale, and instantly turned into ashes. Even the ground was burned by the black flames and cracks appeared. From now on, it also means that Hyakuya Michael has completely fallen, and not even his corpse was left behind. The method used was extremely cruel, and if Hyakuya Yuichiro knew the truth, he would definitely be angered to death. P.S. 3,000 flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 comments plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 2396. After all, Hyakuya Yuichiro and Hyakuya Michael had an extraordinary relationship. If he knew that Hyakuya Michael was chopped into pieces by Dustless, his anger would erupt like a waterfall. Without a doubt, when that happened, Dustless would face the most concentrated hail of bullets. Those two little girls should be done by now. Women are really troublesome. Dustless suddenly raised his head to look at the void. He could not help but shake his head and sigh helplessly. No matter what kind of woman, they would pay great attention to their appearance. When he returned, the 3 palaces, 3 leaves and Sasuke Xiaoya would most likely be gorgeously dressed. What a waste of time. Hand him over. In the deathly silent laboratory, the only sound that could be heard was the voice filled with endless rage. Looking at the source of the voice, who else could it be other than Ike's Hongren? What kind of attitude is this, Hongren? Remember this clearly. You are just the eldest son of a branch family. The Twilight person frowned deeply. At the same time, his tone was extremely unfriendly. You still dare to cause trouble for me? Explain to me where Hyakuya Yuichiro got this monster. Kuei detected the reaction of the Seraph of Termination from his body. The Twilight person practically roared out the last sentence. Being deceived by Ike's Hongren, he was especially angry. The two of them were in a cooperative relationship. They researched and developed the Seraph of Termination together. The equipment was Jun Tsukasa's sister. But now, they suddenly detected the reaction of the Seraph of Termination from Hyakuya Yuichiro's body. How could the Twilight person not be angry? It was obvious that Ike's Honglian was toying with him, feigning compliance but opposing him in secret. Cut the crap. Hand him over to me. Ike's Red Lotus said sternly as she glared at the Dusk people with a ferocious gaze. Everything could be discussed and everything could be settled from the very beginning. However, this was an exception. Yamatsuya Yuichiro was his only trump card to rise to power. In this chaotic world where order had collapsed, what capital did humans rely on to survive? Other than superior strength, what else did they have? Moreover, Ike's Hongren was an eagle that wanted to soar in the sky. Even if he was not strong enough, he still wanted to fight for hegemony in the blue sky and find a sky that belonged to him. Shut up. However, Jimu clearly had no intention of negotiating. He sneered, Honglian, you still dare to question me? Do you think I don't know what you're thinking? I was wondering why you thought so highly of that brat. So it turns out he's one of the remnants of the 100 Knight Academy. Before the world was destroyed, the 100 Knight Court was Japan's largest incantation organization. Their strength had once suppressed the Imperial Ghost Army, but good times did not last long. In the end, they could not escape destruction, and the main culprit was the vampires led by Krulu. Just in case. Haine's Hung Lotus knew that she was in the wrong and her confidence was clearly lacking. Even so, she maintained a solemn expression and emphasized that she was thinking for the future. Bullshit. Who would have thought that Jimu would not appreciate his kindness? He only glared at him and rudely interrupted him. He did not even care about his status as he angrily roared, "It is indeed a precaution. However, this precaution is to deal with our G clan. Do you think I don't know what you are thinking? Wasn't it for the sake of fighting for the world in the future? You still have the audacity to say that it was to deal with Dustless. How shameless." Jimu's face was filled with disdain. Haine's Hung Lotus could only stare at him awkwardly. After all, that was indeed his plan. Now that Jimu's plan was exposed, he felt somewhat guilty. Cough cough. Haine's Hung Lotus was also an old fox. Her face was as thick as a wall. The awkwardness only lasted for a moment. Then she said, "Of course, Yuichiro Hyakuya was only a backup plan to deal with Dustless. It was able to catch him off guard." Catch him off guard. Hearing that, Ike's Honglian pursed her lips and chuckled. The look of disdain on her face deepened. That kid did manage to catch them off guard. However, he ended up getting slapped in the face. He ended up being crippled. This sentence sounded quite funny, but the two of them were silent. Their cheeks were tight, and their expressions were solemn and depressed. They really couldn't get excited when talking about this topic. Even if the Twilight people obtained another experimental material of the terminating Blazing Angel, they still couldn't open their hearts. They were extremely depressed. Even the Seraph of Termination was beaten to a pulp by Dustless. What kind of strength did this brat have? From now on, that Yuichiro Hyakuya belongs to me. After a moment of silence, Jimu's Seraph of Termination said arrogantly. Hearing this, Haine's Hung Lotus fell silent. She lowered her head and looked at Jimu's Seraph of Termination. Then she turned around and left. He understood that his current strength was too weak. No matter if it was his strength or the strength of the Moon Demon group, it was still the same. There was no room for negotiation with Jimu's Seraph of Termination. Just you wait. I will not give up on that brat so easily. In the dark corridor, Haine's Hung Lotus turned around and subconsciously clenched her fists. Then she left without saying a word. In fact, she felt helpless. She could only blame herself for being too weak. She was far from being as strong as Jimu's Seraph of Termination. Even so, Haine's Hung Lotus would not give up just like that. She had been through a lot. She would not give up because of such a small setback. The night was long and eventually it was gone forever. The chill and darkness of the morning sun gradually dispersed. The sky was bright and warm. Warm sunlight poured down from the 9 heavens and shone on one's body. Even the cold-blooded vampire narrowed his eyes and enjoyed this scene. P.S. 3,000 fresh flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 rating plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 2397. The first rays of the morning sun nourished the earth. Under this light, everything was full of vitality. Although it was a cold winter day, it was unexpectedly warm. Swish, swish, swish. A black shadow cut across the earth. The figure was like the wind and as fast as lightning. Even if it passed by, no one would notice. What about Japan? This land really makes one look forward to it. The black shadow suddenly stopped and stood on the broken ruins. He looked at the distant horizon, his young face showing some nostalgia and longing. This person had a delicate appearance and a faint smile at the corner of his mouth. It wasn't very obvious, but it was definitely a smile. The first impression he gave was that he was unusually gentle and looked harmless. Especially when he was wearing a black suit, He gave off a scholarly aura and seemed very knowledgeable. Fried. How many years has it been since we last met? I really miss you. This person murmured softly. Immediately, an interesting arc appeared at the corner of his mouth. He was probably looking forward to meeting the seventh ancestor, Fried Bartley. Moreover, looking at his interested expression, he was probably an acquaintance. Swish, swish. After standing there for a while, the black shadow turned into a flash of lightning and left. In this world, not many people knew this person. Those who knew his identity didn't even know. Even if they really knew, it was probably those old antiques who had lived for thousands of years. About a few thousand years ago, when this person was still a vampire, he had an illustrious identity. Even the third ancestor, Krulu Tsapizi, could only look up to him. His status was far higher than Krulu's. His identity was the second ancestor, Chi-Teng. Saito, this was definitely a godlike title. Other than the legendary first ancestor, Saito stood at the top of the vampires. When dawn arrived, Dustless and the others lazily came out of their tents. As for Xiaoya, the three palaces, Three Yi and the others, they were still sleeping soundly. As the two of them were wanted, they had spent almost the entire day avoiding the Emperor Ghost Army. They had spent a lot of energy, so it was understandable that they continued to sleep in. It's another rare sunny day. Dustless looked up at the rising sun. The warm light shone on his face, making him feel exceptionally comfortable. Yes, Lord Twilight. The honorific attracted Dustless's attention. He immediately turned his head and saw Zhong Mu walking over with Sangong Kue. Those two fellows Crowley and Fried sure are slow. They still haven't killed this cockroach yet. Dustless couldn't help but shake his head. He had no choice but to deal with this annoying bug himself. No wonder I kept having nightmares last night. It's bad luck. Misfortune? Hearing this, Bai Mu Rin frowned. Dustless was so powerful, who could bring him bad luck? He couldn't help but ask curiously, who is it? You're really stupid. Dustless laughed disdainfully. A jinx like you came knocking on my door so early in the morning. Isn't this bad luck? I'm even suspecting that I didn't wash my hands after going to the toilet yesterday. That's why I didn't manage to wash it off. You. Zhong Mu Rin flew into a rage and the veins on his forehead bulged. He was humiliated by Dustless in public. No matter what, he was still the lieutenant general of the Emperor Ghost Army and the eldest son of the Zhong family. How could he stand in front of his subordinates? I'm here to search for Zhong Xiaoya and the three palaces and 3 leaves. Zhong Mu Rin rolled his eyes and instantly came up with a countermeasure. He said slowly, the two of them have stolen important secrets and must be captured for interrogation. So you think I'm harboring the two of them? Dustless casually hugged his head and said impatiently, cut the crap. Don't be polite. Tell me everything. Anyway, I'll treat it as *T. I'll reject all of them. Don't push your luck. I'm from the Zhong family. Zhong Mu Ren's lungs were about to explode. He was so angry that his face turned red. The saber in his hand almost flew out of its sheath. Watch your tone. Sangong Kue also glared at Dustless. Her beautiful eyes were burning with flames. She stared at him without blinking as if she wanted to burn him up. However, Dustless didn't say anything. His face flashed with a cold light. He turned into a golden light and rushed out. In a flash he arrived in front of Sangong Kue. His slender white right hand gently raised and greeted her without hesitation. Slap. A resounding slap landed on Sangong Kue's fair face, and an eye-catching palm print appeared on her face. Brat. The one who should watch his tone is you. The one who needs to figure out his identity is also you. Let me tell you, just based on what you said just now, I can totally kill you. Dustless said sternly. His words were extremely cold. There was a terrifying cold light at the corner of his eyes, which made people shudder. This guy is so arrogant. Many people saw this scene and secretly clicked their tongues. They didn't expect Dustless to be so arrogant. He didn't put Zhong Mu Rin in his eyes at all. It could even be said that he was looking down on him. Hurry up and get lost. You should feel honored that I can condescend to talk to you. Dustless saw that Zhong Mu Ren's subordinates were showing signs of anger. He didn't hesitate to ignite another raging fire. Of course, if you're dissatisfied with me, that's fine. You useless trash can come at me together. I'll only use one hand. No need. If I use one hand, I'll think too highly of you. I'll let you use 2 hands and 2 legs. P.S. 3,000 flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 comments plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 2398. He's too arrogant. Let's teach him a lesson. He's treating us like air. Let's teach him a lesson. Lord Ji Mu Ren is the eldest son of the Ji clan, and the Emperor Ghost Army belongs to the Ji clan. This guy doesn't know the rules at all. Cut the crap. Beat him up. Some of the Emperor Ghost Army soldiers glared at Dustless as if they were really enraged. Everyone was stamping with rage as they glared at Dustless. Of course, there were also some with ulterior motives who pretended to be angry so that they could curry favor with Ji Mu Ren. This guy doesn't put me in his eyes at all. Father is letting him do as he pleases. Ji Mu Ren's eyes were bloodshot. He clenched his fists tightly as large droplets of sweat rolled down his face. Indeed, I don't put you in my eyes. Even though Ji Mu Ren spoke softly as if he was talking to himself, Dustless, who had sharp ears, heard him clearly. He immediately mocked. Is there a need for me to respect someone like you? Is it because you're strong or because your faction is strong? None of them. You're too weak. You don't deserve my respect. Ji Mu Ren's veins popped out when he heard that. Those words were more painful than a few slaps to his face. You're not convinced? Come. I like to add fuel to the fire. Give me an inch and I want a mile. When I said I don't put you in my eyes, I'm not just talking about Ji Mu Ren. I want to say that I don't put anyone in my eyes. You're all trash. Wu Qin was still unmoved. His expression was as calm as the wind. His smile was so natural, so confident, and so arrogant. Is this guy stupid? The Emperor Ghost Army soldiers were speechless. Wasn't he courting death by going against the Ji clan? Ayaya. Why can't this guy hold back his anger? Didn't he say that he wanted us to get rid of Ji Mu Ren and Ike's Hanren? It seems like he can't hold it in anymore. The 7th ancestor, Freed, and the 13th ancestor, Crowley, watched silently from a hidden place. The one who spoke was Freed, who had a joking expression on his face. Isn't that a good thing? We don't have to do anything. Instead of fighting, I prefer to find a place to sleep and enjoy a cup of afternoon tea. Leaning lazily against the cracked wall, Crowley looked like he wanted to slack off. At the same time he raised his head and looked at Freed. Don't you think so? Lord Freed doesn't want to. Towards the end, Crowley's voice suddenly came to a halt. This was because Freed wasn't as relaxed and calm as he had imagined. Instead, he wore a solemn expression. This solemn expression was rarely seen on Freed's face. Krolik, you're too shallow in certain matters. Freed was no longer silent. Do you know what it means if Dustless takes care of Ise's Hanren and Twilight Night? He asked. It means that we have no value. What do you think will happen to people who have no value? Maybe that guy will just kill us both, let alone help us kill Saito. Hearing Freed's words, Corey's expression changed slightly. His previous laziness disappeared, replaced by a slightly solemn expression. Indeed, that was what Freed meant. What he said wasn't an alarmist. Pass down my order. Destroy that group of humans. Crowley ordered the vampire beside him. The latter nodded slightly and seemed to have gone to organize the manpower. I'm not here to quarrel with you today. Let me search your tent. Twilight Night apparently didn't want to waste his breath. He looked at Dustless and said, Xiaoya is a traitor. The 3 mistresses and 3 leaves are also traitors. Traitors? Dustless grinned and couldn't help but sneer. I've met countless shameless people, but today I finally met a master. Compared to you, they can't even withstand a single blow. You're the only one in the world who can distort the truth and say that your sister is a traitor. I'm just stating a fact. Please step aside. Twilight Night said expressionlessly. Ow, what a headache. Are you itching for a beating again? Let me treat it for you. Wu Qin was too lazy to talk nonsense. Without saying anything, his body flashed and turned into a flash of light that pounced out. With a shio 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 sound, Wu Qin and the others discovered that there was an additional figure in front of them. Looking down, it was surprisingly Wu Chen's familiar face. So fast. The dusky man's pupils immediately shrank. It had to be understood that this had happened in less than a second. I'd like to see what you're capable of. The Twilight Knight couldn't tolerate it any longer. He unsheathed his ghost curse equipment. Buzz, buzz, buzz. The grass-green blade buzzed and golden lightning wrapped around it. Thunder Ghost was the name of the Twilight Knight's ghost curse equipment. Die. The Twilight Knight glared at Dustless. The resentment accumulated over the years exploded. He gathered all his strength in his hands and slashed at Dustless. However, in the face of this scene, Wu Qin only raised 2 fingers calmly. He's too arrogant. Twilight Knight is a lieutenant general. Reckless fool, This bastard will definitely be split in half by Lord Duskman. Many of the Emperor Ghost army sneered. Some even applauded the Twilight Knight as if victory was already in his hands. Many of the underlings who wanted to curry favor with the Twilight Knight even shouted excitedly that the Twilight Knight would win. How boring is this? Wu Qin sighed softly. The two fingers that he stretched out suddenly separated. Then he grabbed the long saber that was surrounded by lightning. P.S. 3,000 flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 comments plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 2399. Clang, clang, clang. A crisp explosion echoed out. It was as if it contained a great magical power, instantly attracting everyone's attention. Everyone raised their heads to look, and the scene that entered their eyes made them collapse on the spot. This is too strange. How is this possible? Is a human's hand so powerful? The onlooking Emperor Ghost army exclaimed one after another. When they looked up, they saw Wu Qin clamping the long saber between his fingers. His expression was calm, giving people the illusion that he was clamping a mosquito. Is he really that strong? Is this guy even human? Seeing Dustless's strength, the Ghost army took a step back. *CK, is he still human? This was simply inconceivable. He was actually able to catch a blade with his bare hands, and he didn't even blink his eyes. Also, looking at how skilled he was, it was obvious that he was a veteran. He must be used to it. Damn it. Not to mention the others, even the leader of the incident, Ji Mu, widened his eyes. His eyes were as wide as a bronze bell. His previously confident expression turned into one of shock. He even couldn't help but curse. This scene, let alone the others, even Ji Mu himself found it difficult to accept. If an ordinary person was cut by an ordinary knife, he would bleed incessantly. Ghost curse weapons were even more powerful, especially Thunder Ghost, which belonged to the Black Ghost series. A slight wave of the weapon could cause terrible consequences of destroying the body and destroying the evidence. However, Dustless was safe and sound as if nothing had happened. However, this was only the beginning. Ka. A crisp shattering sound suddenly rang out, and the grass-green fragments suddenly drifted down. Seeing this scene, many people widened their eyes in astonishment, and the shock in their eyes was even more obvious. This monster crushed Lord Dark Twilight's ghost curse weapon with his bare hands? Only those with good eyesight would be able to discover that the grass-green fragments floating on the ground were the fragments of the Twilight people's weapons. As for the thunderous ghost blade, there were also many clearly visible fragments. At a glance, it was covered in cracks and it was as messy as a spider web. You bastard! The Twilight warrior roared, his face ashen as he stared at the two fingers. His weapon had actually been crushed by this fellow. Was the difference between them that great? Oh, bastard, go to hell. The dusk demon roared crazily, the grass-green blade suddenly flashed, the golden lightning swallowed Dustless in the blink of an eye, his entire body was bathed in the scouring of the lightning. This time it should be over, right? Most people's hearts raced as they stared at Dustless, who was engulfed by the golden lightning. It was a rare sight to see a lieutenant general of the Emperor Ghost Army vs a general. You know what? We are not people from two different dimensions. Dustless gently raised his palm and looked at the golden lightning that was darting around in his palm. It was obvious that the lightning was striking him, but he didn't feel anything. It was as if he wasn't the one being attacked. There was no pain or numbness. People from two different dimensions? What do you mean? Ji Mu's tone was extremely hoarse, and his face was filled with gloom, as if he had suffered an unprecedented blow. Because, Dustless grabbed the two fingers of the Thunder Ghost and suddenly closed them and then broke them with force. Pa! A very loud crisp sound suddenly spread out. At this moment, the minds of all the spectators were blank. The Ghost Curse weapon of the Black Ghost series was the most powerful, but what about the ending? In the eyes of Dustless, it was just an ordinary piece of porcelain. It would break with a little pinch. It was really vulnerable. You are too weak. Holding the broken blade in his hand, Dustless glanced at the dusk demon, and then directly threw it out. Poochie! A wisp of dangerous fluorescent light came from the front, and the dusk man immediately felt a chill all over his body. He immediately felt the god of death greeting him. Without thinking, he immediately used the fastest speed in his life to escape, but he was still a step too late. His chest was pierced by a broken blade, leaving a fist-sized hole. Plop! Suffering such a fatal blow, The dusk demon's body immediately lost its ability to escape, like a kite with a broken string, weakly falling to the ground. Lord Dusk Demon. Seeing this scene, many of the Emperor Ghost Army exclaimed, and quickly surrounded the Dusk Demon to protect him. They all looked at Dustless unkindly. Of course, a group of people who hated him were very happy to see him unlucky. After all, the Dusk Demon was ambitious and had offended many people. Get lost. Dustless did not even bother to look at this group of small fries, and said indifferently, "You bastards, stop right there." Sangong Kuei was indeed the most loyal subordinate of the Dusk Demon. She immediately stood in front of Dustless with a determined face, and a determined look in her eyes only revealed two words: fearless. "Don't think that I won't kill you just because you're a little prettier." Dustless opened his eyes slightly, and just glanced at Sangong Kuei, and did not say anything else. Although Dustless had some relationship with the 3 palaces and 3 leaves, he would not let Sangong Kuei go just for her. Of course, if she was tactful and was willing to leave, Dustless would not make things difficult for her. But at this moment, Sangong Kuei had obviously chosen the wrong path. Get lost. After about a few seconds of silence, Sangong Kuei still stood in front of Dustless, and impatiently walked over. "You're not allowed to touch Lord Dusk Demon." Sangong Kuei realized that she was ignored and could not help but feel angry. She immediately picked up her tachi and swept it at Dustless's neck. "You're courting death." Seeing this, Dustless's eyes turned cold. Light gathered at the tip of his finger, and suddenly countless laser beams shot out of his big hand. Laser. P.S. 3,000 flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 comments plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 2400. Swish, swish. Between his 5 fingers, a large amount of light shot out, covering the sky and covering the earth. There were too many to count, and the gorgeous luster was like a golden drizzle falling down. The whole sky was dazzling with gold and jade. Poochie, poochie, poochie. The unstoppable golden light hit Sangong Kuei head-on, and the light that filled the sky poured down. Her weak body was pierced with countless holes and blood spurted out. In the blink of an eye, Sangong Kuei was turned into a beehive. Seeing such a beautiful little girl being ravaged like this, it was enough to see Dustless's indifference. Pooh! After suffering such a fatal injury, Sanya Kuei instantly lost all her strength and fell to her knees weakly. Looks like your hit rate is really bad. You can't kill me." At this moment, even though the 3 Palace Kuei was riddled with wounds, it still looked at Dustless fearlessly. Even though it was on its last breath, it refused to admit defeat. "Oh, that seems to be the case." Dustless only smiled when he heard this. "However, you seem to be mistaken about one thing." Dustless suddenly changed the topic and looked down at Sanjo Kuei expressionlessly. "I'm sparing your life not because I can't kill you, but because your sister and I know each other." As soon as he finished speaking, Dustless took a step forward and brushed past Sangong Kuei, completely ignoring him. "You don't come over." When Bai Mu saw this, he panicked and roared hysterically, "I am the successor of the Bai clan. If you kill me, my father will not let you off easily. He's the marshal of the Imperial Ghost Army. Even now you still have such laughable thoughts." Dustless couldn't help but shake his head as he sneered, "Do you think that if I kill you, your father will fall out with me? He once betrothed his daughter to me. Why do you think he did that? If the sacrifice of such an ambitious pawn as yourself could buy my support, your father Chenli would gladly accept it. Furthermore." Dustless then squinted his eyes, which were full of mockery. "I forgot to tell you, your father once gave me a special order. I want you to obey me." The Dusk Man's eyes shone with a cold light as he spoke without thinking. "Obey you?" Wu Qin glanced at Jimu and thought, how narcissistic is this guy? Does he think he's infallible? Isn't it? The Twilight Man raised his head as much as he could and said arrogantly, "My ambition is the world, not a small Japan. Father is old and his thinking is outdated. The future world doesn't need people like him, so, isn't it normal for you to submit to me?" Oh. Dustless couldn't help but laugh out loud. He looked sympathetically at the Dusk Man and said in a compassionate tone, "Then I'm afraid the answer I'm about to give you will disappoint you. Ideas are often beautiful, but reality is ruthless and cruel." Dustless decisively said, "I'm sorry, the order your father gave me is to kill you." After Dustless's words fell, the whole scene was silent. Many people widened their eyes and looked at each other, especially the Dusk Man's subordinates who were in disbelief. As the Emperor Ghost Army's marshal, Ji Tianli actually wanted to kill his own son? This was too unbelievable. Impossible, absolutely impossible. The Dusk Man was stunned for a moment before he roared. His expression changed drastically and he shouted weakly, "Although Father is ruthless, he won't kill me. He knows that I'm still useful, so he will never kill me. You think too highly of yourself. When I appeared, there was no meaning for your existence." Dustless was still ruthless and sarcastic. It sounds unbelievable, but the reality is like this. Dustless didn't talk nonsense. He suddenly took out a letter and threw it in front of the Dusk Man. "Open it and take a look. I think you should recognize your father's handwriting. There are some things that I don't need to say, your father already understands." I don't believe that Father will kill me." The Twilight Tribe member snatched the envelope and read it carefully. After a few seconds his face changed. It turned green and white with a hint of fear and hatred. "This damn old man. I've worked hard for so many years, but now he wants to burn the bridge after crossing the river and kill me." The Dusk Man tore the letter into pieces and roared unwillingly. The content was simple. It only hoped that Dustless would kill the Dusk Man. The reason was simple. The Dusk Man wanted to seize power and replace Ji Tianli as the Emperor Ghost Army's marshal. Ji Tianli, who hadn't enjoyed enough power, naturally couldn't watch his son seize it. Therefore he had given Dustless such an order. It was just that all along Dustless had never obeyed. "Sir Dusk Man, please don't do this." Two streams of tears fell from Sangong Kuei's eyes as she looked at Dustless with hostility. "You're courting death." Seeing this, Dustless's eyes turned cold and he swung his saber. Puchi. The shimmering fruit's heavenly sword of gathering clouds cut through Sangong Kuei's chest at the speed of light. Her skin was torn open and there was no time for her to react. What insane speed. By the time everyone reacted, Sangong Kuei was already lying in a pool of blood. "What should we do?" The Dusk Man's expression changed. Looking at Sangong Kuei, who was unwilling to die, his cold expression showed no mercy. He even scolded, "This trash can't even stall for time. Useless. It's better for trash like this to die early." "Do you have the right to talk about others?" Dustless sneered. The shimmering sword of gathering clouds swept out again and went straight for the Dusk Man's head. Gotcha. The Dusk Man's head was like a fragile watermelon. It was split in half by Dustless's saber. Brain matter splattered everywhere. P.S. 3,000 fresh flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 comments plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 2401. Who? Seeing the death of Chen Mu, the members of the Emperor Ghost Army gasped and widened their eyes in disbelief. Their shock was clear to see. The Lieutenant General of the Emperor Ghost Army, the eldest son of the Chen family, was killed without any hesitation. He didn't even give Chen Tianli any face. It's over, it's really over this time." Everyone was stunned as they stared at the cold Dustless. Their hearts trembled. "Now who else wants to try?" Wu Chen's clear and cold eyes looked around and asked indifferently. His tone was extremely calm, like an ancient well without ripples. However, when it entered the ears of everyone, it was like a bolt from the blue. It scared everyone to the point that they repeatedly retreated. Their expressions were as if they had seen a ghost. "Quickly run." Some of the Ghost Army couldn't stand the fear and ran away. The large group of people instantly collapsed. Truly a bunch of useless trash. Seeing this, Dustless disdainfully lowered his head and sighed. His handsome face was filled with boredom. "Now you see clearly what kind of person he is. Little brat, you're still a bit immature." Many people were stunned when they heard Wu Chen's thought-provoking words. They turned their heads and saw the scene that was reflected in their eyes. Everyone was so shocked that they cried out involuntarily. Sangong Kuei, wasn't this guy dead? Why did he suddenly come back to life? Did he come back to life? Everyone's attention was focused on Sangong Kuei, who was originally dead, coming back to life. His body was still riddled with wounds, but his complexion was much better. Dead. What do these people mean? How am I dead? Sangong Kuei was confused, not understanding what these people were talking about. They have this illusion because I released an illusion on everyone just now. Dustless paused for a moment and then said with a chuckle, "It's only at this time that you can see through a person's nature." What? You saw what Twilight Knight did just now and you still want to be loyal to him? Dustless coldly asked. Of course, if you want to stay loyal to Ji-mu and want revenge, I welcome you at any time. However, this time I will really kill you. Idiot, die early and be free. Boom boom boom. A murderous aura burst out of his body and pounced on Sangong Kuei. She was already on the verge of death, but she was even more vulnerable. She was like a weak willow branch that could only go with the flow. Not anymore. After a moment of silence, Sangong Kuei suddenly shook her head. There was a trace of deep despair on her face. I have always been loyal to Lord Mu Ren. I never thought that I would end up like this. It's good that you know it's time to repent. Dustless did not waste any more words. He nodded silently and continued, the Imperial Ghost Army is no longer suitable for you. Because of your sister, I won't make things difficult for you. Leave the Imperial Ghost Army. I can guarantee your safety. Thank you, Lord Dustless. Sangong Kuei was extremely grateful. He bowed deeply to Dustless. Go go. Dustless waved his hand and said, you're still young. Your future, swoosh swoosh swoosh. It was also in this short moment that an ear-piercing roar pierced through the void. Several deep blue rays of light poured down. Just as they were about to hit Wu Chen, these rays of light turned into ferocious white tigers, their eyes revealing a ferocious glint. Whoa whoa. The majestic tiger was extremely domineering, and the oppressive roar made people retreat in fear. Is it late at night? Raising his head, he casually glanced at the giant tiger that was swallowing him. Wu Chen's deep eyes looked into the distance. A dark ink spot could be ignored, but he still found it because of his excellent eyesight and he saw it clearly. At the same time, the tiger that descended from the sky opened its mouth at the largest angle and swallowed Dustless with a gulp. How is this possible? Is General Dustless dead? He's a top master who crushed the Lieutenant General of the Dark Twilight Tribe. I heard that he can fight thousands of vampires alone. How could he die? So what? That guy is too arrogant. He thinks he can be arrogant after killing the Lieutenant General of the Dark Twilight Tribe. But he still has other tricks up his sleeve. Dead. What a pity. General Wu Chen might have been able to lead us to a renaissance, but he fell just like that. Sigh. Many of the Emperor Ghost Army looked at the huge blue tiger that landed on the ground and sighed. Was a pity? They thought that the future of mankind was lost, and they might have lost a chance to fight back against the vampires. Of course, there were even some who were gloating. Worms one after another. Since you all want to die, I won't grant your wish. That's too much. In the stomach of the huge blue tiger, Dustless was safe and sound. He gently stretched out his slender hand and waved it forward. A straight flash of light appeared and compressed rapidly, finally turning into a huge golden sword. Heavenly Sword of Clouds. The moment the light sword was formed, Dustless did not waste any time. He raised his hand and slashed down. A huge golden light flew out. A huge crack appeared on the abdomen of the huge blue tiger. It was simple and easy. Gulp. Isn't that too scary? However, this scene was unbelievable in the eyes of others. They were so surprised that their jaws almost dislocated. He had been swallowed by the tiger. How could he still be alive? In the end, he even broke out of the abdomen. This was too strange. If you want to die, I'll grant your wish. It's late at night. Anyway, I'm here. A cold voice came from the abdomen of the tiger. Then the huge body exploded with a bang, revealing Dustless, who was unscathed. His face was bright and his eyes were bright. P.S. 3,000 flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 comments plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 2402. If you want to die, I'll fulfill your wish. Late night, I'm here anyway. A cold voice came from the tiger's abdomen. Then the huge body exploded with a bang, revealing Dustless, who was unscathed. His face was bright and his eyes were bright. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Before Dustless could finish his words, the dense attack swept over again. The pure blue light descended like a shot of a bullet, riddling Dustless's body with holes. Even so, Dustless still stood there unmoved. He was an ability user who had eaten the glint fruit. He looked up and disdainfully looked at the small black dots in the distance. He said sarcastically, "Late night, you should have heard of it. The probability of this kind of pure physical attack hurting me is 0. Even though they were a few hundred meters apart, Dustless's words crossed the space and fell into Late Night's ears. Damn monster, how did this monster do it? Late Night spat and cursed. He was really disgusted by Dustless's ability. It didn't matter if a person was strong enough to make you despair. After all, you could work hard to make up for the gap between you and him. But for an ability like Dustless, no matter how you attacked, he would be unharmed. How could such a shameless and cunning ability be broken? There was no solution at all. Kill those humans for me. It was also at this time that a group of vampires suddenly appeared. Their eyes were ferocious, like tigers that had not eaten for 10 days. They pounced on the Emperor Ghost Army, and the bloody battle began. Freed and Crowley, these two fellows have finally made their move. In that case, I don't need to deal with this group of Emperor Ghost Army anymore. Dustless leaped out, transforming into a dazzling ray of light as he pounced forward. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. The golden ray of light cut across the sky like a peerless divine sword splitting the earth. The unstoppable sharpness made people feel powerless, and they didn't even have the courage to resist. Jean Late Night, who noticed that Dustless was closing in on him in an instant, had an even more colorful expression on his face. He was extremely angry. He's so strong that it's hard to deal with him. He also has a move that's immune to physical attacks. His speed is also so fast. How can we fight him? Jia Late Night cursed again and immediately ran away. He was a sniper and was responsible for long-range attacks. Close combat was not his forte, especially when the enemy was Dustless. You want to run after ambushing me? The sneer was accompanied by a blinding ray of light. The ray of light was simply too fast, and the moment he stood up and took a step forward, the Dusky, which was already heavily injured. Pucci. The light accurately hit the Dusky man's calf, and Knee Demon was immediately penetrated. He screamed, "Ah!" and fell to the ground. His handsome cheeks were bleeding. TSK, how tragic. What a pity for that face. The laughter of Schadenfreude was so ear-piercing that the Dusk people turned their heads and saw Dustless's ugly face. "It's you again." The Dusky which clenched his fists. His eyes were sunken, and the light that shot out was scarier than a beast and more threatening than an eagle. "What do you mean it's me again?" Dustless was speechless. This guy ambushed him, and he didn't want him to find trouble with him? What kind of logic was this? Bang. Taking advantage of Dustless's carelessness, the Dusky which fired another shot of blue light at Dustless's head. "You're too careless. I'm also from the Emperor Ghost Army, Tensho." The blue bullet was suddenly engulfed by a ball of black fire. It was so fast that it was incinerated in the blink of an eye. Not even a trace of residue was left. Sorcery, it's definitely sorcery. Seeing this scene, Jia Late Night's eyes almost exploded. His ultimate move was nothing in front of Dustless. The other party didn't even move his hand, he just blinked his eyes. It's right to feel that it's hard to accept. In fact, in this world you can't understand. There are countless things that are beyond your knowledge. What you know before is just a side of it. Wu Chen's expression was gloomy, as oppressive as a dead tree bark. His lifeless aura made Wu Late Night shudder and the blood in his entire body boil. Jia Late Night, although your surname is also Dusky, you hate the Dusky family very much. You can't wait for this family to be destroyed as soon as possible, right? Dustless looked at Jia Late Night deeply and said, "In other words, you didn't come to save Dusky Witch just now. If you really want to save him, you won't wait for me to kill him. Let me guess, it's that kid Ike's Hanren, right?" Hearing this, Jia Late Night looked at Dustless in shock and immediately denied, "Nonsense, his surname is Ike's and I'm from the Dusky family. He's from the branch family, and the Dusky family is the main family, even if I'm the adopted son." Dustless curled his lips and sneered, "You speak so righteously, but you just want to protect Ike's Hanren. Idiot, you think you can protect him? Let me tell you, no matter what, that kid will be torn into pieces." Bang bang bang. As if he was really angered by Dustless's words, Jia Late Night fired again. The bullets whistled and penetrated Dustless's body, leaving a few holes. An ordinary person would definitely die, but this kind of simple injury didn't affect Dustless at all. His face was as calm as stagnant water. A bright and warm golden light emerged from his wounds, and in an instant, they were healed by the glint fruit's elemental conversion ability. Hateful monster. Jia Late Night closed his eyes in despair. He really felt powerless against Dustless. "It's good that you're in despair, farewell." Dustless didn't waste any time. All kinds of divine weapons appeared from the space behind him, and he shouted, "King's treasure!" Shoo shoo shoo. Groups of sharp weapons shot out at the same time. Jia Late Night was a person with broken legs, so he couldn't move. He could only watch helplessly. Pucci. Similar to the method used to kill Yuichiro, Jia Late Night was also pierced by countless weapons, leaving bloody holes in his body. P.S. 3,000 flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 comments plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 2403. You will not have a good ending. Xiao Late Night's eyes were wide open. His eyes were bloodshot and his eyes, which were like copper tombs, turned blood red. His exaggerated eyes were terrifying as if they were going to swallow Wuchen. Still struggling on your deathbed? Dustless narrowed his eyes and flicked his slender hand. A cold light shot out from his eyes. Amaterasu. In a flash, Jean Late Night's battered body burned with black flames. The black light looked like it came from hell. In an instant, the smell of burnt human flesh could be smelled. A cool breeze suddenly drifted past. That nauseating smell entered everyone's nostrils, causing many people to vomit uncontrollably. Kill me if you have the guts. You bastard. Jean Late Night, who was being tortured by the Amaterasu, roared loudly. No, no, no. Dustless shook his finger and said coldly, wouldn't that be letting you off too easily? Don't think that I don't know what you are thinking. You want to scold me because you want me to kill you as soon as possible. How can there be such an easy thing in this world? I want to burn you to death slowly with the Amaterasu. Dustless's voice seemed to be filled with magic. The black fire burning on Jean Late Night's body was immediately extinguished and became abnormally dim. But because of this, the burning speed of the flames slowed down. But when it landed on a person, it was extremely painful and torturous as it slowly burned to death. Ah! A skinny middle-aged man stood above the ruins. His eyes were as clear as spring water. This was the second primogenitor Qiteng. At this moment, he was rubbing his chin and looking into the distance with a faint smile on his face. It's time to take a look. Qiteng's gaze moved slowly again. A huge city rose from the east and Qiteng looked over. The third primogenitor Krulutsapizi, a ray of light shot out from his onyx-like eyes, giving off the feeling of a rising sun in the dark night. It was exceptionally dazzling and attracted a lot of attention. Swish, swish, swish. Qiteng turned into a black shadow and sped away. His body was as light as a swan, and his every movement was natural. Even the uneven mountains were like flat plains, and his movements were exceptionally light. From this, one could see Qiteng's power. Even though he had stepped down for thousands of years, he hadn't regressed. In fact, he seemed to have improved. As for Qiteng's identity, it was rather complicated and mysterious. Not only was he the second ancestor of vampires, but he was also the person in charge of the 100 Knights cult. Even this Seraph of Termination project was related to him. It could even be said that Saitu was the one who used Yuichiro and Michael as guinea pigs for experiments. Ta-ta-ta-ta. In the gloomy corridor, light footsteps could be heard. Although they were soft and almost inaudible, those with good ears could still hear them clearly. It seems like an uninvited guest has arrived. Inside the brightly lit palace, Kululu raised his eyes that were like spring water. Ripples spread out in his eyes as he looked into the distance. He narrowed his eyes and carefully observed the figure that was walking over from the dark corridor. Seems familiar. Krulu frowned slightly. Confusion appeared in his eyes. He couldn't help but scratch his head and recall his experiences over the past thousands of years. He felt that this mysterious man in a black suit was somewhat familiar, but he couldn't remember who he was. Oh, don't you remember me? At the same time, Saitu also walked into the lobby. He looked around, took a deep breath and said with a smile, I smell something special, Klulu. What do you mean? Also, who are you? Don't talk to me like I'm an old friend. I'm not familiar with you. Krulu glared at him coldly and shouted in an unfriendly tone. She was on her guard. This guy must be extraordinary to be able to pass through so many defenses. Only Dustless could do this. Qiteng's eyes froze when he heard this. He asked in surprise, Don't you remember me? We met 1,000 years ago. Have you forgotten? The man who always followed the primogenitor? Krulu's eyes narrowed when she heard Qiteng's words. Two people appeared in her mind. They were both the second primogenitor. One of them was Qiteng, and the other was Ulji, who was also the second primogenitor. Why are you here? Your hair wasn't like this back then. Kru immediately clenched his fists as his little face twitched. It was as if he had encountered a dangerous natural enemy. His entire body felt uneasy. Even though his little face was calm and collected, it was now covered with a haze. Don't be so nervous. I'm not as scary as you think. Qiteng smiled gently. It was hard to imagine that he was the second primogenitor. He gave off a stable and reliable impression. Even so, Krulu was still nervous. She forced a smile and said, "Oh, is that so? Then Rig Stafford." "No, that's your original name." "That's right. I'm cheating now." Cheating nodded and said abruptly, "I'm no longer a vampire. Rig Stafford is my vampire name. It's only natural for me to change it." "Before that, I have a question for you." Suddenly, Sato's face changed, revealing an extremely terrifying and gloomy look. "I smell a unique scent. It seems to be a human. I remember that guy's name. I think it's Wuchen. He seems to be the only general of the Emperor Ghost Army. P.S. 3,000 flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 comments plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates." Chapter 2404. Thump. Hearing Sata's words, Klulu became even more nervous. She didn't know Sata's background before, but now she knew that he wasn't a friendly person. "Oh, Klulu, don't be so afraid. I'm not here to cause trouble for you." Saitu seemed to have seen through Klulu's fear. He smiled warmly like the sun. However, such a warm and heart-piercing smile didn't erase the shadow in Klulu's heart. Instead, it made her feel even more uncomfortable. This was the smile of a devil. "The matter between Wu Chen and me, where exactly did this fellow get the news?" Kelulu's heart was filled with doubts. His crystal pupils were covered with a layer of mist. He was puzzled. Suddenly, he looked at Saito's thin figure and felt that this figure was too terrifying. It was as if no secret could be hidden from his eyes. "Oh, looking at your expression, does that mean you admit it?" Saitu pursed his lips and chuckled. He rubbed his fingers in boredom and continued, "I heard that Fried had some kind of premeditated plan with him. It seems that he wants that guy to kill me." "I don't understand. I don't know about the deal between them." Klulu shook her head indifferently. This time she really didn't know. Dustless didn't tell her about the deal between him and Fried. Therefore, Klulu really didn't know about it. This was the truth. "I know you don't understand. I took the liberty to visit today because I want to see what's so special about that guy." Sata's playful expression suddenly disappeared. He said seriously, "To be able to subdue the third ancestor of the vampire queen, Klulu Tsapizi, and my rebellious son, Fried. To be honest, I'm a little curious about this kind of person." Saitu spoke with confidence. A hint of caution flashed in his eyes. Even though he spoke calmly, he was actually quite afraid. He knew the world of vampires better than Dustless. If he wanted Klulu to listen to him, he must have the strength to crush her. Moreover, his cunning son, Fried, was flirting with Dustless. It was enough to tell that he was extraordinary. "I'm sorry, but your hopes are dashed. I know what you want from me. It's about Dustless, right? Actually, I don't know much about him. In fact, I don't even know as much as you do. So you should give up." Klulu said coldly. She really didn't know Dustless. In the past few years, the number of times the two sides had met could be counted on one's fingers, not to mention understanding each other. Dustless had always been mysterious. "You don't understand?" Ting's eyes flashed with a cold light as soon as he finished speaking, and the elegance on his face disappeared. His expression changed faster than flipping a book. "I'm just stating a fact. Since you know that he's my boss, have you ever seen a boss tell his own secrets to his subordinates?" Kruguru was full of vigilance. She had already smelled a ghastly killing intent, and she felt as if she had fallen into an ice cellar. Her entire body shivered uncontrollably, and she felt extremely uncomfortable. "You're right, but these words aren't enough to make me leave." Ting smiled slyly, and his handsome face revealed a sinister expression. "Even if you really don't know Klulu, you're still a hostage with value. No matter what, Klulu was related to Dustless. You want to deal with me?" Hearing this, Klulu was like a flood that broke through a dam, and a murderous intent spread unstoppably. Although she wasn't as strong as the second ancestor, it didn't mean that she would just sit there and wait for death. The great ancestor will never let you go. Knowing that her chances of winning were close to zero, Klulu had no choice but to use the first ancestor, the origin of vampires. However, Ting only shook his head. "Are you an idiot? Your reaction is really slow. Didn't I say before that I'm now called Ting? I've abandoned my previous name, and at the same time, I've also abandoned my identity as a vampire. Do you understand? Not to mention that I'm no longer a vampire, even if I'm still the second ancestor. Do you think you can make me leave just by threatening me? What a joke." Ting couldn't help but curl his lips, and his handsome face was full of disdain. Go to hell. Seeing that the negotiation was useless, Klulu shot out, his black afterimage disappearing in the blink of an eye, rushing forward like a meteor. Puchi. The black shadow pierced through Chi Ting, and with a cracking sound, one of Chi Ting's arms was cut off. His sleeves were also torn off, and his black suit was very obvious. You? Chi Ting's face turned ugly and he turned to look at Klulu in surprise. After not seeing you for so many years, you've become much stronger. Looks like you've worked very hard. Most importantly, that guy taught me well. Klulu smiled in high spirits and said proudly, the second ancestor? He's worse than I thought. Chi Ting wasn't angry when he heard that. When he heard, that guy taught me well, he immediately understood. Even though they were on opposite sides, he couldn't help but frown. You're talking about Dustless, right? TSK, it's really surprising that he can make you so much stronger. At that moment even I didn't react in time. These words were from the bottom of his heart. When Klulu launched a sneak attack, his speed was too fast and when he realized it, his arm was already broken. But, Chi Ting suddenly changed the topic and sneered. Klulu, no matter how well he taught you, you're still not Dustless. Chi Ting suddenly shook his shoulder, and a clang 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 sound was heard as if iron chains were rolling. Then his broken arm was reattached and it was as good as new. The most terrifying thing was that Chi Ting's body had changed drastically, and dense iron chains shot out from his back like a spider web. P.S. 3,000 fresh flowers plus more chapters, 3,000 rewards plus more chapters, 1,000 rating plus more chapters, 500 automatic subscriptions plus more chapters. Chapter 2405. Saito was like a spider crawling on the iron net made of chains, staring at Klulu. Even though he was expressionless, Klulu felt like he was being stared at by the Grim Reaper. When a tiger loses patience with its prey, it will show its most ferocious side. Saito was just like that. I have to say, you've really surprised me. You've improved so much, and it's all thanks to a human. Everyone will be shocked if they hear about this. After all, you're the third primogenitor, but you managed to break the arm of the second primogenitor. You're not simple, Saito said slowly, his expression was cold and as steady as a rock. TSK, you put it nicely, but you're still scared, aren't you? Just like what that guy said, everyone likes to bully the weak and fear the strong. Klulu said disdainfully. He could see that Sato's face was unnatural and his lips were trembling. As Dustless said before, bullying the weak and fearing the strong was the nature of a person. However, your current appearance is also very frightening. Your arm was twisted and you don't smell blood. At this point, Klulu's tone sank. Are you a human or a ghost right now? Klulu stared at Chi Ting without blinking. His cute cheeks were tense and wrinkled. He sincerely felt that the Chi Ting in front of him was too terrifying. His appearance was handsome and bright, but his mind was unfathomable, like a bottomless abyss. It was impossible to see through his essence. This guy is strong, I'm not his opponent. Klulu thought to himself, his chest was panting uncomfortably. Although Klulu had the upper hand in the previous exchange, he had used all his strength. Sato's dodging was just the tip of the iceberg. I'm embarrassed to hear you say that. Saito waved his hand like a little girl and said seriously. Do you know why we were abandoned by the ancestor? It's because I'm still a vampire. The times have changed and my identity has to change. This is how the times should be. Otherwise I'll be eliminated. Saito pursed his lips, his mouth curved into a smile. Obviously he admitted that he wasn't a vampire. Brother? Klulu muttered. She suddenly thought of her brother and her beautiful eyes dimmed. Her brother had been chosen by the first primogenitor, and both of them had mysteriously disappeared. When they met again he had actually become a ghost. Truly the affairs of the world were unpredictable. Swish, swish, swish. All of a sudden, a gust of chilly wind assaulted his entire body. The absent-minded Klulu immediately shuddered and cursed himself for being careless. Cut the crap, hurry up. The words that came out of his mouth came to an abrupt halt. Seeing the black shadow in front of him, Klulu's expression changed greatly and he retreated without hesitation. Too slow. Saito coldly snorted, his figure moving like a ghost as he quickly closed the distance between them. Although Klulu's strength had greatly improved, he was still a third-generation primogenitor while Saito was a second-generation primogenitor. There was a huge gap between them. Even if Dustless had trained him well, it was impossible for Klulu to become as strong as a second-generation primogenitor in just a few years. Get over here. Several iron chains shot out from Saito's back. They were like strong giant snakes that nimbly wrapped around Klulu's legs. Soon after, Saito exerted a little force, and Klulu couldn't break free from that terrifying force and instantly flew over. Bang ka. Saito's ferocious nature erupted as his big hand suddenly pressed down on Cruz's cheek and immediately smashed him to the ground, crushing a large area of the floor. Although it didn't harm Cruz's life, he still spat out a large mouthful of blood. Ayaya. Why is it so exaggerated? I only used a little force, why do you look like you're about to be crippled? Saito asked with a mocking smile, full of disdain. I have nothing to say. Kill me if you want. Klulu's courage was commendable and he didn't even blink. You'd rather die than tell me about Dustless? Saito's face slightly trembled, extremely surprised. He didn't expect that Klulu would be willing to risk his life to not reveal information about Dustless. Humph, don't compare me with a treacherous villain like you. You want me to betray you? Are you worthy? Are you worthy? Don't say that I don't know what kind of mysterious person Dustless is. Even if I knew, don't expect me to tell you. Compared to him, you're simply a joke. No, to put it more bluntly, you're a fart. Klulu's tone was sharp like a knife, stabbing into the weakest part of Saito's body. Obviously, she was also unafraid of death. Mocking the second ancestor was a fart, she was simply seeking death. Humph. Hearing this, although Saito didn't kill Klulu on the spot, his eyes were filled with the light of a death god. It wasn't hard to see that once he got the information he wanted, he would definitely not hesitate to destroy the flower. You don't dare? Klulu curled her lips in disdain, and her sneer became even more obvious. I thought you were a fart just now, but now you're even less than a fart. Just a name alone is enough to make you not dare to act rashly. If Dustless himself comes, won't you still kneel and beg for mercy? This is the second ancestor, Saito? If word gets out, it's to Kacha. Saito seemed to have had enough of Klulu's nagging. He controlled the iron chain on his right arm and shot it out. A dark light fell from the sky like a divine sword. A cold light flashed from the right side of Klulu's body. After a loud bang, Klulu's right arm disappeared. That's it? Saito, you're too useless. Klulu didn't even blink when his right arm was chopped off. Instead, he said, since you're so eager to get information about Dustless, it can only mean that you're afraid of him. Ayaya. I'm impressed by your glib tongue, Klulu. Did you learn this from Dustless? Sure enough, it's true that a famous teacher produces a brilliant student. As if he had really accepted his fate, Saito retracted all the iron chains on his body and slowly approached Klulu step by step. Klulu's expression didn't change. Although her arm was chopped off, she didn't seem to feel any pain. Or rather, she was used to it. Since you want to die, I'll fulfill your wish, Klulu. 3,000 flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 reviews plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 2406. Saito is like the Grim Reaper. Don't be fooled by his gentlemanly appearance. In fact, he's a cunning old fox. There were countless people who had been cheated by him. Die. Saito roared. Dense chains shot out from his back and aimed at Klulu's heart. Am I going to die? Klulu closed her eyes in despair. Now that things had come to this, she had no regrets. She had no regrets following Wuchen. If she died today, she could only blame herself for being inferior. She was actually grateful to Wuchen. Bang 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 bang. The dense chains hit Klulu's body, but there's no bloody scene. It's like hitting a rock. Klulu is unharmed. All the chains shot out by Saito bounced back. What is that? Saito narrowed his eyes and suddenly found something wrong. What is this? At this moment, not to mention Saito, even Crew realized that something was wrong. In front of her, a transparent barrier appeared out of nowhere. It's the barrier that blocked Saito's attack. There's someone else here? Saito said to himself in horror. His eyes widened to the maximum. He looked as far as he could, but there was no one there. Strange. Looking at the wall in front of Klulu, Saito was puzzled. Could it be that the heavens had opened their eyes and saved Klulu? What a joke. Looking at Klulu's blank face, she obviously doesn't know what's going on. Vampires are really a slow race. A cold voice suddenly came. Saito's heart suddenly trembled. Cold sweat dripped down his body. He quickly looked over. What kind of master is this? Even I didn't notice him. Coming and going without a trace. Didn't that mean that this person could kill him as easily as flipping his hand? Thinking of this, Saito suddenly felt a chill down his spine. He felt like there's a big sword on his neck. It's you? Sato's face changed when he saw the person. His handsome face almost turned into a pig liver. I should have known it was this guy. But I'm sorry. You didn't think it was me until the end. Although you've seen my real body now, I'm sorry to tell you that it's too late. Wuchen spoke with fervor and assurance. His words scared Qi Teng so much that his face turned ashen. This sentence revealed too much meaning. Listening to Wu Chen's words, it seemed that Wu Chen wanted to kill him. You want to kill my people? You're overestimating yourself. Glancing at Kalulu, Wu Chen didn't hide his contempt and said directly, I can beat 10 trash like you. Beat 10 of me? Sato's mouth twitched. He felt like he can't stand it anymore. He used to be the second ancestor. But this guy said that he can beat 10 of him. Your Excellency is too presumptuous. Sooner or later you will fail miserably. Saito coldly shouted. If he didn't fart now, he would really be looked down upon. Presumptuous? Nonsense. Actually, I've restrained myself enough. Dustless shook his head and said indifferently, I'll be frank. You should be proud that I can talk to you. BFFF. Saito almost spat out his saliva. Can't this guy be more low-key? He had seen arrogant people before, but he had never seen someone so arrogant. It was as if he was the loser. Sir Dustless. Seeing Dustless appear, Klulu was touched. She thought that she would be abandoned. Who would have thought that Dustless would fight with Saito for her? You're too reckless to fight with me for a pawn? Is it worth it? Is it worth it? Saito asked in a puzzled manner. If he were Dustless, he would have decisively refused. Fight with you? Are you an idiot? This is just a one-sided annihilation. Dustless sneered. Idiots nowadays like to think that they're infallible. P.S. 3,000 flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 comments plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 2407. You've been modified into this? Dustless's interest was piqued. He picked up a broken part and said, Forgive me for being blunt, but even if you modified yourself, it doesn't change much. You're still dead. It's just a matter of lifting my foot. No matter how sturdy the machine was, it was just a matter of lifting a foot for Dustless. Is that so? Saito, who was supposed to be dead, spoke again with a hint of pride in his voice. You want to destroy me with a single kick? You're looking down on me. With that, a large number of chains shot out from Sato's back and grabbed all the broken parts and stuffed them back into his head. In the blink of an eye, Saito was back to normal. Even his mangled face was restored to its original state. He didn't seem to have suffered any injuries at all. I can't kill you with a single kick? Dustless smiled contemptuously. He lifted his foot and stepped on Sato's head again. Then let's do it again. Bang. A brutal kick landed on the back of Sato's head. The repaired head shattered like a watermelon. Some parts even turned into powder. So strong. Klulu clicked her tongue. At this moment, the third ancestor was like a little girl who had never seen the world. She was shocked by Dustless's strength. The second ancestor, Saito, was like a pawn that couldn't even withstand a single blow. Klulu felt an indescribable sense of satisfaction when she saw him being stepped on. Seems like I followed the right person. The corners of Klulu's mouth inadvertently revealed a trace of a charming smile. She looked at Dustless with a slightly different gaze. At this moment, Klulu was quite charming. She had lost the arrogance and nobility that belonged to a queen and had gained the cuteness and playfulness of an ordinary girl. B****, this is so frustrating. Sato's crushed head was repaired again. Although it was unscathed, Sato's face was green with anger. He was a well-known figure, the second ancestor of the vampires. He had lived for thousands of years. What had he not seen before? Saito knew that there were only a few people in the world who could be compared with him, but Dustless was the one in front of him. His head had been crushed by Dustless over and over again. Although his body could recover without limit, it was still a great humiliation for him. Have you finally realized that you're worthless? Lowering his head to look at the furious Qi Teng, Wu Chen casually said, Sometimes, it's not a good thing to be immortal. Being tortured over and over again, being hit over and over again, it's better to die early. The earlier you die, the earlier you can reincarnate. B****, don't underestimate me. Hearing this, Sato's eyelids twitched fiercely. He supported himself on all fours and raised his head forcefully. Because of anger, his eyes turned blood red. He glared at the expressionless Wu Chen, trying to push away the stinky foot on his head. Seeing this, Wu Chen's eyes flashed coldly. Who allowed you to look up at me? Lightspeed kick. His right foot stepped on Seida's head, creating a dazzling destructive light, as if it was plated with a layer of gold. Due to the high temperature, Seida's head began to melt. The top of his head was burnt to a golden color, slowly melting. A clear fist-sized hole appeared, through which Seida's head could be seen. Boom boom boom. The shining foot exploded and the ground trembled. Seida's body was blown to smithereens, leaving nothing behind. His body parts were scattered all over the place. Bang. A pitch-black sphere fell in front of Klulu. She looked down and saw that it was an eyeball and it was still spinning. Disgusting. Seeing this, Crew was indescribably annoyed. He decisively stepped on it and with a bang, it shattered into powder. The technology of the 100 Knight sect can be called a black weapon. They actually transformed Saito into such a monster. No wonder he abandoned his vampire body. If he couldn't create a suitable body for Saito, he obviously wouldn't give up his original identity as a vampire. This modified body could be said to be heaven-defying. No matter what kind of damage it suffered, it could be repaired flawlessly. The vampire in the past was also powerful. Only the Ghost Curse weapon could kill him. Other weapons were useless. However, they were not as powerful as Saito's modified body. Does that mean this guy can't be killed? Cruella opened her mouth and asked in shock. No matter how she attacked, she couldn't kill his body. How powerful was that? Didn't that mean he was invincible? In other words, even Dustless couldn't kill him. You only know how powerful I am now. Sorry, it's too late. Sato's broken body reformed again. He even ignored Cruella. His eyes were locked on Dustless with murderous intent. This kid had humiliated him so much that he had to pay for it. Whoosh, whoosh. Countless black chains once again broke out of his body. There were so many of them that the naked eye couldn't see them all. The only thing that could be seen was a dense mass. There were more than thousands of them. It was hard to imagine what kind of monster Saito had been transformed into. How could such a thin body contain so many chains? A spider? Seeing Sato's exaggerated posture, Cruella cursed and quickly hid behind Dustless's back. This was the only safe place in the world. Let's stop the fight between kids. Wuchen was a little impatient. Several black balls suddenly appeared behind his back. They were about the size of a fist. Disappear without a trace. Dustless flicked his finger gently and several balls shot directly at Chi-Teng like cannonballs. Using these truth-seeking balls to eliminate him was giving this kid face. Crack, crack. The moment the sphere appeared, everything within a radius of 70 meters inexplicably collapsed, including Sato's ferocious chains. Everything disappeared without any warning. P.S. 3,000 fresh flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 comments plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 2408. What the hell is this? This was the first time in his life that Saito screamed. His trembling voice was filled with endless fear. Witnessing such a horrifying scene, his blood began to boil uncontrollably. The moment the black sphere appeared, it was as if the world had come to an end. Everything in the world began to crumble rapidly. Not only did the chains that Saito shot out crumble, but even the grass and trees around him disappeared without a trace. Even the abandoned buildings collapsed inexplicably and turned into a pile of yellow sand in the blink of an eye. What kind of ability is this? How can a mere human have such an ability? Could this guy be the reincarnation of a god? Saito looked constipated. It was as if he had swallowed a pound of flies. It was as ugly as it could get. Bang! At the same time, Sato's body began to dismember inexplicably. Fix it! Saito roared angrily. Once again he shot out a large number of chains from his body in an attempt to retrieve the broken pieces. Who would have thought that the chains would disappear without a trace the moment they came into contact with the broken pieces? To a certain extent, the truth-seeking jade is indeed an ability that only a god can possess. Dustless spoke frankly. He stared at Sato's half-broken body and said slowly, "No matter how sturdy your body is, it will still turn into ashes in front of the truth-seeking jade. Even your soul will not be able to escape the punishment of the truth-seeking jade. I know I was wrong. Please let me go. I am willing to be your servant." Even though Saito had lived for thousands of years, he was still terrified in the face of true death. He bowed and begged Dustless for mercy. He still had a grand plan in mind. He was not willing to die like this, especially in such an inexplicable way. "You want to be my slave?" Wu Qin looked at Qi Teng, who was begging for mercy. He was surprised. Yes, you heard me right. Master Dustless, I am willing to be your servant. I will follow your orders from now on. If you ask me to go east, I will go even if it means going through a mountain of swords and a sea of fire. Saitu patted his chest and vowed. In his opinion, Dustless would definitely agree. He was, after all, one of the top experts in the world. He would be overjoyed to be Dustless's servant. With a second primogenitor as a subordinate, Dustless would be smiling even in his dreams. I appreciate your kindness, but I'm sorry. Dustless coldly glanced at Qi Teng, obviously rejecting him. You're too weak. You're not qualified. After that, Dustless controlled the truth-seeking orb to move forward. Under Saito's incredulous gaze, the black orb directly hit his head. Boom boom boom. Following a violent explosion, Saito and the ground within a few hundred meters were destroyed. Affected by the shockwaves of the truth-seeking orb, even the ground was scorched black. Not a single blade of grass grew, turning the area into a land of death. The dignified second primogenitor died just like that? Crew rubbed his eyes. After discovering that Saito had disappeared, he wasn't as happy as he had imagined. He just stood there in a daze. Get rid of the word dignified for me. He's just a piece of trash. Dustless said disapprovingly, you can't say that Saito has no value at all. He must know something about the Seraph of Termination. After Saito stepped down from the position of second primogenitor, he had allied himself with the 100 Knight sect. Moreover, he was the person in charge of the Seraph of Termination. He must know some secrets that no one else knew. Then why did you kill him? Isn't that like throwing a stone into the sea? There's no way for me to find out? Crew looked at Dustless in confusion. In his impression, Dustless was a meticulous person. He wouldn't be so reckless. No. This only proves that you don't understand me. Gazing at the distant horizon, Dustless's lips curled into a thought-provoking smile. Sometimes it's not good for a secret to be exposed. If you find out the truth one day, you might be disappointed. What's so bad about being in a fog like this? Having a conspiracy is a good thing. At least I won't be bored. What a strange person. Crew shook his head. She didn't understand Dustless's thoughts and couldn't be bothered to ask. Everyone had different pursuits. Crew and Dustless saw the world differently, so their thoughts were naturally different. In a certain meeting room of the Emperor Ghost King, it was different from the previous meetings. At this moment, the floor was covered in blood. The corpses of the Emperor Ghost Kings were everywhere. Some of them had shocking military ranks, but without exception, everyone was lying in a pool of blood. As the marshal of the Emperor Ghost King, no one dared to challenge his dignity. He was usually high and mighty, but now he was a miserable stray dog with a knife wound that covered his entire chest. You? Tai Tianli widened his eyes and stared at the figure in front of him. He clenched his fist tightly and threw a punch over. Pfft. This mysterious figure didn't show any mercy. He directly chopped off Tai Tianli's right arm with a sinister smile that was even scarier than the devil's. You brat, I really regret not killing you back then. Tai Tianli's face turned pale from the pain. He said regretfully, Dustless told me to pay attention to you, brat. I didn't expect to fall in your hands. Is that so? Then I can only wish for you, old man. This mysterious figure said coldly. With the help of the weak filthy light, one could vaguely see this person's appearance. It was the leader of the Moon Ghost Group, Ike's Hanren. It's just as that guy said. The Dusk people want to kill me, and so do you. Tai Tianli closed his eyes in despair. If he had listened to Dustless, he wouldn't be in such a miserable state now. P.S. 3,000 fresh flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 rating plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 2409. Dustless? It's that damn guy again. Ever since that guy appeared, everything that I expected to happen has gone against my expectations. It's all because of that stinking brat. At the mention of Wu Qin, the Jinx, Ike's Honglian's somewhat prideful face immediately darkened. Her face tensed up as well. She did not have a good impression of Dustless. Because of Dustless's appearance, a series of accidents had occurred. All of her plans had failed, and now even G Twilight and his partner G Late Night were dead. If it was only because Twilight Walker had been killed, Ike's Hongren would naturally not hate Dustless. On the contrary, she would thank him. After all, although Twilight Walker had a cooperative relationship with her, his surname was still Walker. He also had the blood of the Walker family flowing through his veins. In the end, they would still be enemies in the future. Their current cooperation was only because they shared the same interests. Once the vampires were eliminated in the future, Ike's Hongren and Twilight Walker would become enemies. G Late Night was different. Although his surname was also G, he was only an adopted son. He had no G family blood and he hated the G family as much as Ike's Hongren. It was also because G Late Night was killed by Dustless that Ike's Hongren hated him to the core. She wanted nothing more than to skin Dustless alive. After all, G Late Night was her most important ally. That's right, it's fine if you didn't mention it. Now that you mention it, I just remembered that Wu Qin has an unusual relationship with you. Tell me about his background. See Tianli, I'll let you die a quick death. Otherwise, have you tried to slowly peel off your flesh? That feeling is very enjoyable. Ike's Hongren said those words with a smile. The surviving Emperor Ghost Army felt a chill run down their spines. Even Ike's Hongren's subordinates paled. Was this still the gentle Ike's Hongren from before? Now, it was as if she had been possessed by a demon. I do know a lot about him, but I advise you not to ask too much. Some things are too outrageous. You'll think that you're listening to a fairy tale. Tai Tianli panted heavily. He knew that he was on the verge of death. Ike's Red Lotus did not immediately kill him. Instead, she wanted to drain his blood and slowly torture him to death. Are you sure you want me to say it? It's best if you don't, or you'll definitely pee in your pants. That guy is more terrifying than you can imagine. Yun Qianli ridiculed. When he mentioned Dustless, a trace of awe flashed across his eyes. The way he looked at Ike's Red Lotus was like that of a clown, filled with disdain and contempt. In his opinion, a nobody like her who wanted to challenge Dustless was like an ant trying to shake the heavens. She wouldn't even know how she died. Do you think I'm afraid of him? No matter what, even if I have to chase him to the ends of the earth, even if he is dead, I will find his corpse and whip it to vent my anger. Hearing those words, the expression on Ike's Red Lotus's face turned grim and she growled, "That fellow killed my most important companion. I want nothing more than to tear him to pieces. Do you think I am afraid of him? Too childish." Ike's Red Lotus was heartbroken when Tian Late Night died. She wanted revenge even in her dreams. Why would she be afraid? Since you want to know, I will fulfill your wish. I might as well tell you now. You will definitely regret it if you hear it. Yun Qianli smiled strangely and asked, "Do you know the leader of the vampires?" Nonsense. Ike's Red Lotus snorted coldly. Who doesn't know about this? Not just me, even the regular Emperor Ghost Army knows that the leader of the vampires is the third ancestor, Klulu. However, that guy doesn't have the pride and dignity of a vampire. The other vampire nobles like to put on airs and are arrogant. Only Klulu is different. He seems to have become Dustless's lackey. No. I don't think so. On the contrary, I think that Queen Klulu is very smart. She knows how to adapt to the times. Otherwise, she would have been destroyed long ago. The fact that she can live until now shows that she is very smart. Yun Qianli shook his head and expressed a different opinion. If Klulu went against Dustless, he would have died long ago. Finally, he reminded, also the third ancestor, Klulu Tsupizi, is the leader of the vampires in Japan. I mean, he is the boss of all vampires. Do you know who he is? Of course I know. Are you trying to say, the legendary first ancestor? But what does this have to do with Dustless? Old thing, don't try to fool me. After a moment of silence, Ike's Red Lotus replied in a heavy tone. The name of the first ancestor was too important. No one had seen him before. No one knew who the first ancestor was. Many people knew that the boss of the vampires was the first ancestor. However, no one had seen him before. Not to mention the legendary first ancestor, no one had even seen the so-called second ancestor. Even the third ancestor, Klulu, was invincible. There were some things that the second ancestor did not even need to appear, let alone the first ancestor. Akatsuki Ikanes, let me tell you a piece of important news. The so-called first primogenitor was actually killed by Dustless many years ago, you self-righteous idiot. Yun Qianli laughed arrogantly at the end of his sentence. He looked at Ike's Red Lotus's shocked and confused face with pride. Needless to say, the topic of conversation this time had truly frightened Haine's Korea. He had always believed in everything, but this time, it was too outrageous. His plan with Haine's Korea had been seriously derailed. The topic was clearly about Dustless's strength and origin. Why did it end up involving the first ancestor of the vampires? The most unacceptable thing was that Yun Qianli said that Dustless killed the first ancestor a few years ago. What kind of situation was this? This joke was not funny at all. Treat this old man. Don't let him die so quickly. You have to pull me out of a big hole. Otherwise your sons and daughters will die. Ike's Red Lotus ordered coldly. She had already thrown caution to the wind. P.S. 3,000 fresh flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 rating plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 24:10. Hearing Tai Qianli's explanation, Ike's Hongren's heart palpitated with fear. At the same time she was deeply puzzled. The secrets involved in this matter were unimaginable. How could the legendary first primogenitor be killed by Dustless? No matter how it was explained, Ike's Hongren found it hard to accept. This was too absurd. It was as if a god who could move mountains and fill seas was killed by a weak human. It was too laughable. Hee. Tai Qianli laughed and looked at Ike's Hongren mockingly. As Tai Qianli had revealed important information, Ike's Hongren did not want him to die so quickly. At the very least, she had to extract some useful information before letting him die. Therefore, she ordered her subordinates to perform emergency treatment on Tai Qianli. Tell me everything you know about Dustless. If I'm satisfied, I can spare your life. No matter what, we are old friends. Ike's Hongren suddenly said as if she was genuinely kind. She had a complicated expression on her face. Ike's Hongren, you don't have to pretend anymore. Do you think I don't know what kind of person you are? You usually like to act mysterious and play tricks on me. When have you ever told me your true feelings? Do you think I'm a child that you can fool? Tai Qianli said with disdain. Who are you? Take a piss and look at your reflection. The word, treacherous, is written on your face. Hearing this, Ike's Hongren's expression changed. She said sternly, Tai Qianli, are you going to protect Dustless? That guy killed your son, the Twilight Man, and Zanyi. Are you going to let him get away with it? Tell me what you know. Only then will I be able to deal with him and avenge them. Good kill. Wonderful kill. Dustless did not chop the Twilight Man into pieces. That's what I'm most dissatisfied with. Tai Qianli's incomparably valiant reply caused Ike's Hongren to be dumbfounded. Is this old man's brain rusty? Fine. Tell me what's the relationship between Dustless and the first primogenitor. Seeing that Tai Qianli refused to speak, Ike's Hongren could only ask about other things. Well, since you want to hear it, then I'll tell you. I guarantee that you'll regret it for the rest of your life. You'll completely understand how powerful and invincible that guy is. Tai Qianli licked his dry lips and recalled the events of a few years ago. His thoughts were lost in his memories. I remember one time when Dustless told me that he had found an interesting toy and was planning to leave for a while. I didn't stop him, but I asked him what mission he was going to carry out. At the time, he only said that he had obtained information about the first ancestor and was going to hunt him down. Yun Qianli was full of admiration. In the entire world, only Dustless dared to say that he would kill the first primogenitor. Regardless of how impressed Ran Qianli was, Ike's Red Lotus jaw dropped. Are you trying to say that the toy Dustless found is the first primogenitor? Bullshit. Ike's Hongren completely abandoned her gentlemanly elegance as she rudely interrupted the crazy Tai Qianli. Old man, do you believe the words of that fellow? The way I see it, he's just bragging. He's just trying to invite us for battle merits. Idiot, I've worked with Dustless for a few years. I know him better than you. That guy might really lie to others, but he would never lie to us. There's no need for that at all. Inviting us for battle merits is even more nonsense. If he wants to, he can kill me and take the position of marshal anytime. Ike's Hongren was speechless after hearing Tai Qianli's words. Dustless was indeed not interested in the world. He was only interested in those powerhouses. So what? If I meet him in the future, I'll tear him apart and avenge Midnight. Ike's Hongren was silent for a moment before she felt relieved. She glanced at Tai Qianli and suddenly felt extremely annoyed. Slash. With a slash, the sharp blade cut off Tai Qianli's throat and ended his life. His head was even chopped off, turning him into a headless corpse. How did he find the first primogenitor? It shouldn't be. Ike's Hongren was filled with doubts that no one could answer. Perhaps only Dustless himself could answer her questions. The first primogenitor was a mysterious and unfathomable figure. He was a legendary existence. It was too surreal to think that he could be killed just like that. In fact, the first primogenitor of the vampires was indeed killed by Dustless a few years ago. As for how he found him, it was actually very simple. When the first primogenitor disappeared, he brought along Ashira Tsapizi, who was also known as Agilamaru. Dustless used him as a breakthrough point and used his Rinnegan to search Agilamuru's memories. He found some traces of the first primogenitor. After that, he created a large army of white Zetsu to search for his whereabouts. After a period of hard work, he finally found the first primogenitor. He met the leader of the vampires. As the first primogenitor, he was definitely the strongest person in the world. Dustless naturally would not let him go. After a great battle, he crushed him and finally killed the first primogenitor. Almost no one knew about this. Dustless only told Tai Tianli about it. Hold it right there. After killing Saito, Dustless hurried back. There was about a day's difference in time. However, as soon as he arrived at the camp, a group of King Ghost Army soldiers surrounded Dustless with swords. "Are you all blind?" Dustless asked unkindly. He was the only general in the King Ghost Army. He was considered a household name. Were these idiots deliberately looking for trouble? The criminal Dustless killed Marshal Tai Tianli. You are now wanted. The soldiers surrounding Dustless were alert. Their eyes were shining. Killing Dustless promoted him by 3 ranks. I killed Tai Tianli? That's a good reason. Dustless was puzzled. He did not like the old man, but it was not necessary to kill him. There was no doubt that someone had framed him. Dustless could only think of one person who could do this. Ike's Hanrin. P.S. 3,000 flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 comments plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 24:11. I didn't teach that brat a lesson, but he took the initiative to frame me. He used such a despicable trick right from the start. Sure enough, that brat isn't a good person. Dustless directly ignored everyone as he muttered to himself. All this time he didn't have a good impression of Ike's Red Lotus, not even a little. She kept saying that her companions were her family, but in the end, it was the complete opposite. Her so-called family was just a pawn used by Ike's Red Lotus. Take Tsukasa Jun for example. Ike's Red Lotus clearly knew that his sister was used as a human experiment by the Twilight people and was subjected to all kinds of cruel torture. Yet, she chose to keep her mouth shut and hide it from Tsukasa Jun. Was this how she treated her so-called family? It was worth mentioning that Ike's Red Lotus did not help Tsukasa Jun in the end. Instead, she colluded with the Twilight people and conducted the Blazing Angel experiment together. Furthermore, the experimental subject was Tsukasa Jun's sister. It was truly lamentable. Thus, Dustless had always thought that Ike's Red Lotus was a treacherous person who hid a knife behind a smile. Her so-called family was just a tool used for experiments. Tsukasa Jun's sister and Hyakuya Yuichiro were examples. Attack together and destroy this bastard. He dares to ignore us? Seeing Dustless in a daze, the Ghost King soldiers surrounding him were enraged. They pulled out their swords and slashed at him. Every one of them had a greedy look on their faces. There was nothing they could do about it. Killing Dustless and getting promoted 3 times was too tempting. Some people spent their entire lives at the bottom. Getting promoted 3 times was like a pie falling from the sky. This condition was really generous. Many people had the idea of killing Wuxia for promotion, so much so that they even ignored his shocking strength. As the saying goes, people die for wealth and birds die for food. When the reward reached a certain level, even if they knew that there was only a dead end ahead, the people who stepped on the mine would never stop. Yasukani no Magatama. Dustless would definitely not show mercy to this group of people who were seeking death. With a flick of his finger, light bullets shot out like raindrops. Puchi, puchi, puchi. The light bullets easily pierced through the bodies of several people. They specifically targeted their vitals. Their hearts, heads, charred holes appeared. One could even smell the stench of rotten flesh. Reckless fool. Dustless only snorted coldly. He didn't even look at the corpses of these people. They were courting death, so why should he show mercy? Being able to leave a complete corpse was considered a VIP treatment. I hope those 2 little girls will be fine. Dustless lowered his head and muttered to himself. The 2 little girls he was talking about were naturally Xiaoya and Sangong Sanch. In the past, Dustless was still the only general of the King Ghost Army. Naturally, Ike's Hanrin was afraid of Dustless. However, things were different now. Dustless had most likely killed Tong Tianli and became the new general of the King Ghost Army. In a way, Dustless's killing of the Twilight Immortal could be said to have helped Heine's Red Lotus. If the Twilight Immortal had been in the way, he would not have been able to gain control of the King Ghost Army so easily. On the ground that was full of ruins, Dustless walked forward alone. Before the destruction of the world, this place used to be a glorious metropolis, but now it's just rubble and broken tiles. All of this was thanks to Ike's Hanren. It was because of her that the world was destroyed. This is bad. When he came to the place where the King Ghost Army was stationed, Dustless looked around. The King Ghost Army, which had been in groups before, had disappeared, leaving behind a large number of vampires and King Ghost Army corpses. It can be seen that there was a big battle here before. It was most likely the battle between the vampires led by Fried and Ike's Hanren. It is estimated that there was no winner between the two sides, and even the vampires suffered a big defeat because there were more vampires' corpses on the ground. I hope they have good fortune. Dustless muttered, and his observation hockey spread out and found that within a radius of tens of kilometers, there was no one. There were only two possibilities for Xiaoya and Sangong Sanj: either they were captured by the King Ghost Army or they escaped. If they were captured by the King Ghost Army, they would be doomed because Ike's Hanren has always been ruthless. Since she dared to kill Tong Tianli, why not kill Xiaoya? She was simply using her relationship, not to mention that Xiaoya was a member of the Tong family. It seems that I have to let that little girl unify the vampires as soon as possible, and destroy that group of humans as soon as possible. Dustless's eyes flashed coldly. He will not sympathize with humans or vampires. Whoever goes against him is an enemy, that's all. Inside the resplendent palace, Kelyalu sat on the throne with bright eyes. He had regained his cold and arrogant demeanor, keeping everyone at a distance. Yo. How long has it been? Queen has come out of Sato's shadow. It's not easy to come by. A sudden voice was full of ridicule. You've grown up, Klulu? Who is it? How dare you? The vampire guards around were furious. How dare you despise their queen like this? You deserve to die. Get out of here, all of you. Unexpectedly, Klulu was not angry. Instead, he said sternly, disappear from my sight in 3 seconds, or your brains will explode. Go. These cold-blooded words scared all the vampires out of their wits. They looked at each other and hurriedly fled in all directions. How can you treat your subordinates so cruelly? Aren't you afraid that they will be disappointed? After all, it's for your own safety. Countless divine lights flashed around Klulu, like thousands of fireflies dancing. In the blink of an eye, Dustless's thin body appeared out of nowhere. What kind of ability is this? Klulu sighed inwardly. He could only blame himself for being short-sighted and ignorant. Dustless appeared so mysteriously every time, and he did not notice it at all. P.S. 3,000 flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 rating plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 24:12. This is the devil fruit, the elemental transformation of a Logia user. Noticing Klulu's confusion and astonishment, Dustless slowly explained, elemental transformation is a very unique ability. It allows one to be immune to most physical attacks. Immune to physical attacks? Cruella took a deep breath. Although she did not know what a devil fruit was, the ability to be immune to physical attacks was already invincible. Human? The escaping vampire guards turned around and saw Dustless. They shouted angrily, stay away from the queen if you don't want to die, or else, get out of here, you bunch of trash. The impatient Klulu angrily rebuked. This time she seemed to be really angry. Her shout carried an invisible impact, and the group of vampires were all blasted away. A bunch of idiots. Why can't you see it? This guy dares to appear in my palace alone. His strength must be unfathomable. Why can't you see it? Cruella shook her head and sighed. Some people were cannon fodder. Not only were they weak, but they also had bad eyesight. How's the information gathering going? Dustless fiddled with Klulu's beautiful hair in boredom and said expectantly, the other ancestors of the vampires have also rushed here, right? Yes. Cruella nodded and reported truthfully, most of the noble vampires are here because Master Dustless killed the former second ancestor, Saito. Of course they also want to capture me, the traitor queen. Cruella's voice was filled with confusion. Almost no one knew about the relationship between her and Dustless. Saito knew a little about it, but he was killed by Dustless. However, their secret was exposed in the end. That's good. It saves me a lot of trouble. Dustless stretched his body and said with an expectant smile, I heard that the other second patriarch, Ald Giles, and the third patriarch, Lester Ka, are also here. The other high-grade patriarchs are also here. I can't wait to see the upcoming massacre. Compared to the interested Dustless, Klulu was much more serious. His small face was filled with caution. Lord Dustless, aren't you overestimating yourself by facing a dozen ancestral nobles at once? Crew frowned as he looked at Dustless. This was the first time he doubted Dustless' abilities. It was no wonder that Klulu lacked confidence. Facing multiple primogenitors, including the second primogenitor, Ald Giles, and the third primogenitor, Lester Khan, was indeed troublesome for her. Are you scared? I have a perfect plan to ensure my survival. Dustless looked down at Klulu with a faint smile. I'll hand you over to those monsters and tell them that you're the culprit. After that, I'll suck up to them. How about that? Lord Dustless is still joking at this time? Klulu rolled his eyes. Dustless was also speechless. A large number of vampire nobles were about to arrive, and this guy still had the time to tease him. Did he really think that he was the number one in the world and was invincible? Klulu, your horizons are too narrow. A stone suddenly appeared on his fingertip. Then he exerted some force and the stone instantly cracked. Dustless then explained, those nobles are like this stone. They were lucky that no one could crush them before, but now that they've met me, bang. The hard stone turned into powder in the blink of an eye. Dustless's body was filled with an astonishing ferocious aura. They've met me. They're destined to be crushed to death. Kralik, what happened to the two little girls? You didn't drink their blood, did you? We have to ensure their safety. After all, they are our trump card to negotiate with Dustless. Fried and Kralik, who had been missing for a long time, were drinking in a luxurious villa. They looked at the crimson rising sun in the distance. Are you talking about the little girls called Xiaoya and 3 Palaces and 3 Leaves? Kralik swirled the red liquid in his glass and drank it in one gulp. Dustless does value the two of them, but he won't accept our conditions for the sake of these 2 little girls. After the battle between the vampires and the Emperor Ghost Army, 3 Palaces, 3 Leaves and Xiaoya didn't escape. Instead, they were secretly captured by Fried. Of course I know. Fried held his chin with his hand and said seriously, human nature is a strange thing. A man like Dustless does things very strangely. He might do something shocking. Just like the cooperation before, you didn't expect that guy to really help us kill Saito. Besides, some things aren't as simple as you think. Dustless watched Xiaoya grow up and they have a good relationship. She's the only trump card we can use to restrain Dustless. Sigh. Kralik sighed helplessly. Are you sure? Friedkoen. Against someone like Dustless, we won't be able to kill him even if we have 100 lives. But we don't have a choice. That guy abandoned us and chose to let Krulu unify all the vampires. I can't accept that. Fried revealed a rare ferocious expression. Are you willing to obey Krulu's orders? That queen is very prejudiced against us. Kralik, you might not know, right? Now Dustless and Krulu Tsepezi are fat meat. Dustless killed Saito and Krulu, the third primogenitor, betrayed the vampires. This matter has caused a stir in the world. Fried then revealed a treacherous smile and couldn't help but proudly say, let me tell you, I'm the one who secretly sent someone to inform the upper primogenitors that Dustless secretly killed Saito, and that Krulu had joined Dustless and betrayed the vampires. Then I'll go crazy with you this time. If there really is a god in this world, I hope it will bless us and help us defeat the evil Satan. Kralik finally decided to go all the way with Fried. There were some things that he had no choice in. P.S. 3,000 fresh flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 rating plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 24:13. Time always passed by unknowingly. By the time they realized it, 3 days had already passed. Boom boom boom. On a certain morning, a loud sound suddenly came from Klulu's vampire city. Following that, the ground cracked open as if it had been hit by a meteor. A huge scorched pit dozens of meters deep appeared on the ground. Klulu and that human called Dustless, get the hell out here. An arrogant and unbridled voice filled the decaying city, waking up Dustless and Klulu from their sleep. Asking me to get the hell out here so early in the morning, who has such a bad temper? Dustless crawled out from his bed and lazily stretched his waist. Beside him, there was a haggard-looking girl wearing pink pajamas. This young and tender child was actually Klulu. Glancing back, Dustless saw that Klulu was also slowly opening her eyes. He couldn't help but look at her with disdain. You are still the third ancestor of the vampires. Do you have to be so afraid of death? Because Dustless had too many enemies, it caused Klulu to be filled with worry and couldn't sleep well. Hence, no matter what, he had to sleep with Dustless to feel safe. It was understandable that she would think this way. Clulu was the third ancestor, and there were still people who could kill her instantly. For example, Giles, who was also the second ancestor like Saitu. She might be assassinated at any time. That's because you provoked the strongest people in the world. I don't want to die with you, Clulu said matter-of-factly. At the same time, she was very familiar with that arrogant voice. It's that guy Lester Ka. The third ancestor? Dustless understood this kid. He was a child like Clulu. Go and deal with him. I heard that the grudge between the two of you isn't small. That's what I was planning to do. A cold light flashed in Krulu's beautiful eyes. She and Lester Ka were not on good terms. The two of them had fought many times, both openly and covertly. Their grudges were not shallow. After Dustless's training, Krulu's strength had improved greatly. It was more than enough to deal with Lester Ka. Swish, swish, swish. After putting on his clothes, Krulu galloped away and disappeared in a few seconds. It's hard to even get a good night's sleep. The flies come in waves. Dustless lay on the soft mattress and stared at the ceiling. That guy is your bait, isn't it? A barb to lure Clulu. You actually found out. After a while, a thin man walked out of the darkness. This person had sharp elf-like ears and handsome facial features. His face was always expressionless, giving people the first impression of indifference. You must be the second primogenitor, Giles? Knowing that the other party was the second primogenitor, Dustless could not help but take a second look at him. Am I blind? I really don't see anything special about you. You're not even as good as that Saito. Too arrogant, full of flaws. In this short moment, a ferocious-looking vampire appeared above Dustless's head. He bared his sharp fangs and was about to bite through Dustless's head. The strongest human, your blood must be delicious. Dustless had been given many nicknames since a long time ago. The strongest human was just one of them. Kinsusanu. A golden light flashed on the surface of Wu Chen's body. It quickly shrank and took shape. It covered his whole body and condensed into a fist. He waved his hand and punched fiercely. Bang! The vampire that wanted to ambush Dustless was instantly shattered by the punch. His body exploded, leaving not even a complete skeleton behind. He turned into a bloody mist on the ground. So strong. The second primogenitor, Giles, frowned. The vampire that ambushed Dustless was an ordinary noble, but he was still a famous figure. Dustless killed a primogenitor with a wave of his hand. Wasn't he a little too strong? Sword, drink my blood. A large number of spikes protruded from Giles' sword and pierced through his palm. The originally pale blade seemed to have devoured his blood and turned crimson. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. As expected of the second primogenitor, Giles sent out a destructive sword light with each swing of his blade. Dustless didn't even look at the incoming attack. He controlled Kinsusanu with his mind and formed a fist again. He punched the incoming beam of sword light. Giles snorted and said somewhat angrily, "How can my attack be compared to that trash? It's not something you can." Bang. Before Giles could finish his words, his attack was shattered by Kinsusanu's punch. The beam of sword light raged and turned into small fragments that spread wildly. Countless holes were created in the walls of the palace. There's no reason for the gap to be so big. There must be something wrong. Giles was shocked. His cheeks were twitching, and his mouth was so wide open that a fist could fit in it. You used this move to defeat him? Giles had an ugly expression on his face. He finally understood why Saito had lost. Saito's strength was completely overwhelming. It's a little more complicated to deal with him. It's easier to deal with you, Dustless said honestly. His words angered Giles. Wasn't Dustless mocking him for being inferior to Saito? Open your eyes wide and watch. Giles seemed to be truly enraged. He raised his saber again and slashed down with a slash that was even more ferocious than the previous one. That's the only move I've come up with. How boring. Dustless was dispirited when he saw this. He blinked his Sharingan again and Kinsusanu's form changed again. P.S. 3,000 flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 comments plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 24:14. Kinsusanu was extremely powerful. Every form of Kinsusanu was extraordinarily powerful. From the simplest form of Kinsusanu to the final form of Kinsusanu, every form was powerful enough to annihilate Giles. This thing can even grow bigger? Old Giles was completely dumbfounded as he stared at the enlarged Kinsusanu. He stared blankly at the giant monster in front of him. All the strength in his body was drained away, and a deep sense of powerlessness spread throughout his body. Dustless's body was shrouded in a golden materialized light. This mysterious energy was controlled by some kind of will, and it eventually turned into a mighty giant. It looked like an invincible god of war. It had a Tengu helmet on its head and a thick armor on its body. Its huge eyes looked down at Old Giles, and Old Giles could not help but take a few steps back. What is this? Dustless did not mind at all. He said calmly, the Kinsusanu you see now is just the pure mature form. If you see the complete form, then maybe you will have a different expression. Compared to the complete form of Kinsusanu, the mature Kinsusanu before Old Giles was insignificant. Damn freak. Old Giles' face twitched violently upon hearing that. Judging from what Dustless said, the mature Kinsusanu in front of him did not seem to be the limit. Boom, boom, boom. All of Old Giles' slashes landed on the mature Kinsusanu's shell, but it was useless. It was like rain falling on a rock. There were a lot of them, but they were all useless. The dazzling sword light could not break through the Kinsusanu's defense. In the end, it scattered and disappeared without a trace. You are very lucky to be able to die under Kinsusanu, Dustless said slowly. Even your primogenitor did not receive such a great treatment. Old Giles' head almost exploded when he heard that. He asked in shock, why you killed our first primogenitor? Why are you so surprised? It's not like it was that difficult. Dustless's expression did not change. He was as calm as still water, and there was no trace of Old Giles' exaggerated expression. He had killed countless powerful beings, and the first primogenitor was just one of them. Then you can die now. The scarlet Sharingan blinked, and a visible ripple appeared in its eye socket. Under Dustless's control, Kinsusanu immediately picked up the Tachi in his hand. You want to kill me? Not. Old Giles wasn't an idiot. He immediately berated the other vampire nobles. You guys stay here and stall him. I'll go look for reinforcements. Bullshit. Do you think we are idiots? Reinforcements are bullsh asterisk T. You can you? In the face Giles's cans in the face cans was cans to cans. And swoosh whoosh whoosh. Old Giles did not care about what others thought. He ran with all his might, turning into a blur and disappearing in the blink of an eye. Both the first primogenitor and the second primogenitor, Saito, were dead. It was not a bad thing. Old Giles suddenly realized that his opportunity had come. Why did he have to fight Dustless to the death? It was completely unnecessary. Even an ant would drag out its life. This sentence was applicable to all living creatures. Let's run. The other vampire nobles were not fools either. Since Old Giles had run away, they would definitely die if they stayed here. They looked at each other and ran away at the same time. You want to run? Do you think I'm air? Dustless sneered. His body suddenly surged with a large amount of light and turned into a beam of light that shot into the sky. When he was about 50 meters above the ground, the vast land was in his eyes. Dustless controlled Kinsusanu to cross his hands, and a destructive flash appeared. Kinsusanu, Yasakani no Magatama. In an instant, it was as if a golden meteor shower was falling from the sky. Tens of thousands of destructive lights swooped down, wave after wave. Whether in terms of power or size, they were much stronger than the Yasakani no Magatama. Moreover, the area they covered was much wider. Within a radius of a few kilometers, everything was shrouded in the destructive light. The ground was mercilessly penetrated and there were potholes everywhere. The surrounding area was like the surface of the moon, which had been inhumanely attacked and was scorched black. Who on earth created such an evil trick? Is it the devil? A large number of vampires screamed in pain. Due to the combination of Kinsusanu and the Yasakani no Magatama, its power had been enhanced by the dimensional nature. Once hit, a head-sized hole would appear on their body. It was a horrible sight. The vampires that Old Giles had brought with him were almost completely wiped out. They were all killed in one clean move. Fortunately, I ran fast enough. Old Giles was hiding under a pile of ruins. When he saw the scene outside, his body trembled. If he had been one step slower, he would have been smashed into pieces. Damn that Freed. How dare he trick me? He didn't tell me that Dustless's strength was so terrifying. Old Giles cursed loudly. He wished he could cut Freed into pieces. It was because this guy told him that Dustless had killed Saito and overturned the rule of the vampires in Japan that old Giles came looking for trouble. Oh, so it's that brat Fried. I knew he wasn't that obedient. Sure enough, the tiger that hides in the dark is the most dangerous. You never know when it will take a bite. A cold voice came out of nowhere. Old Giles was shocked. He looked up. Who else could it be other than Dustless the Jinx? P.S. 3,000 flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 comments plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 24:15. When did you appear? I didn't even realize it. Have I become so slow? Giles clenched his fists, his face turning pale. He knew that he was now a complete stranger. Answer me a few questions before you die. Dustless didn't care if Giles agreed or not. He asked directly, Fried told you about my secret contact with Kruru, didn't he? That bastard. It would have been better if Fried had not been mentioned. However, the moment Fried was mentioned, Giles flew into a rage. That bastard dared to scheme against me. He sent someone to inform me that your strength is on par with mine. That's because you're too naive. How could you believe the words of a fox like him? Dustless shook his head. You must think that Fried wouldn't dare to lie to you because you're the second primogenitor. Am I right? Giles didn't say a word. He did think so back then, but he ended up suffering a great loss. Do it. Giles didn't want to waste his breath. He had nothing to say now. He had lost, and he had lost everything. Do you have any last words? Dustless showed a rare kindness to Giles when he saw the desolate look on Giles' face. He could understand the feeling of being deceived by a nobody. Giles probably wanted nothing more than to tear Fried into pieces. Last words. Giles opened his eyes abruptly, shooting out a cold glint. You want me to let you go? Impossible. You must die, Dustless said bluntly. Come to think of it, I've lived for thousands of years. What haven't I seen? To be honest, sometimes I feel like I'm tired of living. Giles' voice was hoarse and weathered. The light in his eyes became empty. He suddenly felt like he had seen through the world of mortals. I only have one wish. I can't stand being deceived by a piece of trash. If you can, I hope you can torture Fried. That damned bastard. Giles roared with hatred. The second primogenitor was tricked to death by the seventh primogenitor. It was a great humiliation to him. He would be laughed at even if he died. As you wish. Dustless nodded in agreement. Shortly after, a light flashed in his hand as he used the Ajuro pill to crush old Giles. He left this world with no regrets. You want me to torture that brat? Actually, even if you didn't mention it, I wouldn't have let that kid off so easily. However, I don't seem to be very good at torturing people. Other than Tsukuyami, there doesn't seem to be anything else. It's better to leave it to someone else. Dustless's lips curled into a faint smile. Abuse? It just so happened that there was a master in this field who could be of service. On the other side, Klulu and the third ancestor, Rester Ka, were engaged in a fierce battle. Because Dustless had trained him, Klulu's strength surpassed Rester Ka's, but it was still difficult for him to kill him. After all, Lester Ka was the third primogenitor, and his strength wasn't bad. Motherf asterisk Kerr, what the hell? For the first time in his life, Lester Ka cursed. Looking at him, his clothes were tattered like a beggar, and his face, which could be considered cute, was covered with dust and dirt. Why is the difference in strength so big? Am I a fake third primogenitor? Lester Ka grumbled to himself. He originally wanted to have a big battle with Klulu. The two of them had a lot of conflicts, and it was only a matter of time before they had to settle their grudges. Today was the best time. However, the result was a tragedy. Klulu seemed to have taken some kind of drug and beat Lester Ka up. There were a few times when Lester Ka would have been killed by Klulu if he didn't react quickly enough. Klulu, you still haven't finished here? A lazy voice came from afar. Klulu's beautiful eyes flashed, and after seeing who it was, he respectfully said, This guy isn't bad, but give me 10 more minutes. I'm sure I can kill him. Kill me in 10 minutes? Lester Ka's small face was red with anger. He said angrily, You think I'm a trash like Fried? You think you can kill me in a few minutes? Dream on. 10 minutes is indeed too long. I don't have that much time, so I'll kill you in a second. A ghostly voice suddenly came from behind. Lester Ka's body turned cold. The moment he turned his head, a cold light fell from above. Pucci. Lester Ka didn't even have time to react before his body was split in half by Dustless. This guy is my prey. After being stunned for a few seconds, Klulu said with dissatisfaction. There was no exception. Dustless could even crush the second primogenitor, let alone the third primogenitor. We still have other things to do. Let's go take care of Ise's Hanren and the others. Without waiting for Klulu's reaction, Dustless left first. What about Freed and Cory? Klulu asked with a frown. Hearing this, Dustless smiled mysteriously. Don't worry about them. A cruel queen will take care of them for me. Let's pray for Freed and Cory. Strange, why is my eyelid twitching recently? In a luxurious villa, Freed, who was drinking, suddenly muttered to himself. He had a feeling that something bad was about to happen. Is this the place? That guy Wuxia called me to this world just to do this kind of thing? That despicable guy, I thought he was the one who brought me out for a date. On a pile of rubble, a seductive figure stood. Her figure was extremely hot, her lips were red and her teeth were white. Her fair oval face was flawless. P.S. 3,000 flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 reviews plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 24:16. However, the guy Dustless still knows my hobby, which means that the kid still remembers me. The beautiful woman licked her lips, showing a horrible bloodthirsty smile, which instantly made her lose her beauty, as if she was incarnated into a female Shura who had killed countless people, which made people unable to help but feel creepy. It was worth mentioning that this coquettish woman with long blue hair had killed countless people. She was the sadist general who had a hobby of torturing others, is death. Dustless wanted to torture Freed not only for Ul Giles but also for himself, but his ability to torture people was SOSO, so he thought of his death. In the past, his death had been staying in the system space and was quite bored. This time she was released by Dustless. She calmly looked at the world that she had never seen before, and her beautiful big eyes were full of curiosity. Forget it, let's finish the task given by Dustless first and then go on a date with him. It's better to have some beautiful things happen in the middle, such as giving birth to children and so on. Istetha's eyes were restored to coldness, looking at the villa in the distance, and suddenly snapped her fingers. Dare to provoke my man, you have a lot of courage. Snap. With a snap of his fingers, a terrifying ice ball suddenly condensed in the void and smashed down like a meteorite. Even the sky was covered by it. The surrounding vampires who saw it fled in panic. Because of the teaching of Dustless, Istetha's strength became extremely powerful, and she also ate the ice-cold fruit that belonged to Akiji in one piece. In addition, she was a fighting genius, so it was conceivable how strong she was. Who did this? The scene suddenly became chaotic, and Freed naturally noticed it. He hurriedly ran out of the villa, looking up at the huge ice ball that slowly fell from the sky, and his heart was full of despair. Gulp. Without exception, Crowley was also amazed. The huge meteorite ice was like the punishment of God, and its huge volume covered a radius of hundreds of meters. What are you doing? What are you looking at? Run for your life. Realizing that Cory was staring at him in a daze, Freed kicked him in annoyance. Soon after, the two of them hurriedly fled for their lives, their speed as fast as lightning. At the same time, Isteth, who was watching silently, also found Crowley and Freed. The speed of their escape was much faster than that of other vampires, which also indirectly showed that the strength of these two was better. They were probably the leaders of this group of vampires. Still want to run? Isteth smiled and chased after him like a gust of wind. Huff huff huff. After running for several kilometers, Freed and Crowley lay on the ground, gasping for air. The two of them were so tired that their backs were drenched in sweat and their legs were sore from running. That was definitely not a natural phenomenon, it was definitely man-made, Crowley said with extreme certainty. Of course I know. Freed nodded in agreement. With an ugly expression he said, it must be him. He actually destroyed our base. Hearing this, Crowley's heart sank. He naturally knew who he was talking about, Dustless. Recalling that his lair had been destroyed, Freed became furious and said angrily, Dustless, that damned bastard. In the future I will definitely, puff. Before Freed's voice fell, a black shadow fell from the sky and stepped on his head with a big foot. The heel of the high-heeled shoe was also stuffed into his mouth, piercing his throat directly and blood spurted out. It's just a bat, a beast. Do you think you can call me Dustless? Trash. There was no doubt that this godlike figure that fell from the sky was Isteth. She suppressed Freed with overwhelming strength in an instant, and there was no room for him to fight back. Who are you? Crowley on the side was also shocked. He pulled out his sword and stared at Esteth. It was too strange. He didn't even have time to react. Fried was killed in seconds. When he realized it, Esteth's heel had stepped on Fried's throat, and he screamed in pain. "You are not qualified to ask who I am, and you are not qualified." Esteth smiled disdainfully. Her white face flashed a cold light. Her body was like lightning again and evaporated from Crowley's eyes. "Where is she?" Crowley was dumbfounded. What kind of freak was this? How could a human speed be so fast? Even the second ancestor, Saitu, couldn't do it. "Idiot, behind you." Fried, whose mouth was full of blood, reminded loudly, but it was too late. Esteth's speed was too fast. Poochie. The ice sword pierced Crowley's chest and penetrated him from the front to the back. The blood flowed down from the wound. Sure enough, as Dustless said, "You are still alive after being injured like this. Are you a vampire? Interesting creature." Esteth's beautiful eyes blinked. She saw Fried standing up tremblingly. It could be seen that he was fine, and so was Crowley. Corey and Fried exchanged glances. Both of them could see the anger in each other's eyes. Out of nowhere, a mysterious character had suddenly appeared, grabbed the two of them and violently beat them up. Was there a mistake? "I know what you want to say." "Don't say it, I am not interested in listening." Esteth's eyes were filled with a raging red luster. She smiled bloodthirstily. "You didn't offend me just because you offended Dustless. So, you too must die and slowly be trampled by me." It turned out to be Dustless's little brother. Crowley was relieved. No wonder Esteth wanted to kill him and Fried. He immediately said depressingly, "However, why are the people around him such monsters? They are countless times more terrifying than those high-level ancestors." P.S. 3,000 flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 comments plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 24:17. God is really unfair, all the benefits belong to that guy. Fried also nodded and couldn't help but look at Esteth. This mysterious woman was as beautiful as a goddess, exuding a noble temperament, and there was an indescribable sense of inferiority in front of her. Yeah, and this woman has a close relationship with Dustless, and her strength is unreliable. "Friedkun, maybe this is the end for us," Crowley said in a heavy tone, and he was shocked by Esteth's overwhelming strength. "Don't worry, I won't kill you." Esteth smiled charmingly, like a spring breeze, making people feel comfortable. At this moment she was very amiable. However, the following words caused Fried and Crowley's faces to darken. "I like all kinds of torture. It's not easy to be released by that guy. Immortal bodies like you vampires must be the most suitable material." Esteth smiled again without the previous gentleness. This time it was the sneer of the Grim Reaper. "Your Excellency, we don't have any grudges. Why do we have to fight to the end? It's not good for anyone." Fried was indeed an old fox with an off-the-charts IQ. He knew that the chances of him and Crowley winning were slim, so he immediately changed his method. His tone was filled with bewitchment as he advised in a low voice, "Dustless is a vicious and merciless person. Why don't we join hands to destroy him and divide the world?" However, Esteth didn't speak, just looked at the two with a blank expression. "Is it not enough?" Crowley's eyebrows flashed, and he added, "How about this, after we join forces to destroy Dustless, the world will be divided 70-30? You two idiots." Esteth, who couldn't listen to it, opened her thin lips slightly and exhaled, "Compared with Dustless, even if you give the world to me, it's still worthless, and you don't seem to understand the relationship between me and Dustless. That guy is my man, do you understand?" Esteth's words made Fried and Crowley's mood fall to the bottom. Before, they even thought of joining forces with Esteth to kill Dustless, but now it was ridiculous to think about it. "It's time to teach you guys a lesson." Esteth's eyes turned cold. With a wave of her slender hand, a large number of ice thorns appeared out of thin air and shot at Fried and Crowley, who were in a daze. "Idiot, why are you still in a daze at this time? Hurry up and dodge." As if he sensed death, Fried shuddered and reminded Crowley beside him. Swish, swish. The two of them hurriedly retreated, dodging the icicles' attacks. Although they managed to react in time, there were simply too many icicles. Unavoidably, Fried and Crowley were hit by the icicles, their bodies riddled with holes. "How are you, Crowley?" Fried asked in a low voice. Just now, Crowley's reaction had been too slow, resulting in his body being struck. A large number of ice spikes had pierced into his body, resulting in hundreds of wounds. Don't worry, Dustless told me that the only way to kill a vampire is to use the ghost curse equipment. Unfortunately, I don't have it, so I'm destined not to be able to kill you too. Isdetha's pretty face was calm, and finally she suddenly laughed again. However, that guy also said that it would be more interesting to take away your vampire's heart and let you lose too much blood? Go. Hearing Isdetha's words, both Freed and Crowley felt a chill down their spines. This woman was simply a pervert. Vampires would mutate if they lost too much blood. It was better to kill them directly than to degenerate into ghosts. Let the show begin. Isdeth didn't care what the two of them thought. Now she just wanted to enjoy herself. The enemy's howling was the most beautiful music for her. In Osaka City, the rest of the Emperor Ghost Army gathered here. The current marshal of the Emperor Ghost Army was Ikanes Akemi. This kid's promotion speed was definitely the fastest. Previously he was still a lieutenant colonel. Now he had become a marshal. How many levels did he jump at once? Himi, hurry up and fight with Dustless, that bastard. In the war conference room, Hyakuya Yuichiro couldn't wait to say, that guy killed Michael, I will make him regret living in this world. You idiot. Unexpectedly, Ikanes Akemi just scolded and sprayed her saliva on Hyakuya Yuichiro's face. Who is Dustless? The strongest man in the world, Wui. How can we fight with him? Unless that kid comes to us personally, I will never take the initiative to attack. Ikanes Akemi stubbornly said. Hearing that Dustless killed the first ancestor, her fear of Dustless became deeper and deeper. So as long as he didn't come to them, Ikanes Akemi decided to continue to be a coward. After all, even the blazing angel of termination was no match for Dustless in the end and was crushed. Truth be told, even in Akase Hanran's dreams she wanted to kill Dustless. However, that was just a dream. In reality she could only obediently become a stray dog. Don't tell me I don't want to avenge Michael? Hyakuya Yuichiro looked resentful. His right hand held the ghost curse tachi tightly, and his body was erupting uncontrollably. There will be opportunities. I'm sorry, but not now. We need to accumulate strength. When we have enough strength in the future, we will destroy the great demon king. Ikanes Akemi patted Hyakuya Yuichiro's shoulder, a sincere look of consolation on her face. However, in her heart she disagreed. Brat, if it weren't for the fact that you are valuable to me as an important experimental subject, I wouldn't have taken special care of you. If you want to die, you should die early. If you die, you idiot, just treat it as purifying the air. Ikanes Akemi had a sincere smile on her face. Her heart was calculating. Hyakuya Yuichiro was an important experimental subject that must not be lost. In the future, when she mass-produced the Seraph of Termination, there would be no need to worry about not being able to destroy Dustless. P.S. 3,000 fresh flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 rating plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. You're tuning in to the Han Lee's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.